Hello, so let's get started with Adobe Illustrator. The first thing you want to do is to set up your file. There are many ways of doing this, basically 4 ways actually. Once you click on file, you go to new and then you start setting up your documents. You could actually click on Ctrl N and it pops up this again, or you can click on create new, you have the same thing, and finally you can click on more presents and you have the same thing. If you've used several files in the past, it's going to be populated on this recent folder here. Adobe have also created several other kind of document format that you may work with. We have mobile, web, print, theme, art, and illustration. So whichever file size you want to work with, you might see them here. For example, if you don't even have anyone here, you could actually customize yours. Yeah, you are free to customize yours. So let me assume I'm going to be working with A4. I'm going to click on A4 and I can change the file name. Let me assume that the name of this file is get started. You can name it whatever you want depending on the project you are working on. And I can always modify the width and the height. Let me assume I'm going to be working with 1080 by 1350. I'm going to keep this thing in pixel. Of course, you have several unit measurement to pick from. I'm going to keep this thing in pixel. So this is the one I picked for myself. You might decide to keep yours in inches, feet, and whatever unit you want to use, you are free to do that. Of course, you can also change the width and the height by, once you bring your cursor close to the width, you can increase by pushing your cursor to the right, and you can decrease by pushing your cursor to the left. See that? Yeah, so the same thing can happen in the height. You can do that as well. Now the next thing you want to do is to change your orientation. Feel free to change your orientation from portrait to landscape depending on the nature of the work that you are doing. The next thing also to look at is the artboard. The artboard is the number of pages that you'll be working with. Let's assume you're working on a brochure that has 12 pages, 48 pages. You can modify the pages to whatever you want. Say that I can change it to 48 pages. I'm going to keep this in at 1, but feel free to explore. All right, so the next thing also I'm going to be adding to this document is the bleed. The bleed is kind of a border that is going to surround my artboard to kind of help me know when I'm overshooting away from my artboard. I'm going to keep this thing at 5. Yeah, automatically it's going to apply the border all around the file that I have, the file size that I have. So the next thing also to decide is the color mode of the work that you are doing. You can decide to keep it in RGB or CMYK. RGB stands for red, green, and blue, while CMYK stands for cyan, M for magenta, Y for yellow, and K for black. Now, if your work is going to be like a digital published content, it's advisable that you keep your color mode in RGB. But if this work is going to be printed, it's advisable that you keep it on CMYK. The next thing also to decide on is the raster effect to use. Of course, 300 ppi is like the highest raster effect, like the highest resolution that you want to use. You can decide to select any ppi you want. Some people, when they choose RGB here, they prefer to keep their ppi in screen mode, but you can decide to have more than that, so far it gives you the end result that you want. You feel free to also explore as you do several projects in the future. So once I have this selected and I'm happy with what I have here, let me keep this thing back to 1080 and then keep this thing back to 1350. Yeah, once I'm okay with this, I can click on create. Once I do that, it will create the document for me. So the red border that you are seeing is the bleed. That's what is called, the bleed that we just had. So to kind of help us to know when we are overshooting away from our preset size of documents. Yeah, all right, I hope this helps you to get started with Adobe Illustrator. See you in the next video. So now that you've learned how to create your documents, there are several other things that you can do before you begin to use the software to create whatever you want to create. Now, when you look at this tab here, or let me even start by showing you how this place is going to be looking like the first time you launch this. Once you launch this, you're going to be seeing something that looks like this. Yeah, you're going to be seeing something that basically look like this. So you want to set up your workspace, all right, to look, you know, pretty much good, so that you can be able to do your work easily and get like a very good result. You want here to be looking like, you know, more like a creative environment. Yeah. So now I'm going to go to the workspace and I'm going to select the kind of workspace I want. Usually I do tell people to leave this in classic essential because it kind of gives you more room to a whole lot of things. So you could see once we switched from essential, this essential, to essential classic, we saw different kind of interface on this software. You can shift to automation and you see a different interface as well. You can click on painting, you will see a different interface as well. I'm going to just leave this thing in essential classic. You can feel free to look around all these interfaces and you will get to see something. So I'm going to leave this in classic essential so you can see what I have here already. Right, so if I like the way this thing is and I want to save this particular workspace so that I can be using it any time and any point I want, maybe for example, let me assume that I want to add some more feature, that I want this thing to go up there, and I want to have like my strokes somewhere here. I'm gonna just go to Windows and I'm gonna add some other thing that I want to see here, like the stroke. I can click on that. The stroke is here. Perhaps I want to drag my stroke to be somewhere here. I can do that. Yeah. So maybe if I'm happy with the way this thing is looking, I can decide to save my workspace. Of course, when you begin to work in the near future, you begin to see some tools that you may want to have handy within your work environment that you don't want to always go to Windows to look for them. You can click on, once you have this thing, you can save this new workspace now. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to name it guests. Right, once I'm okay with it and I click OK, now this particular interface is safe for me. Let me assume something happens and I mistakenly deleted this and I want to get back to my original workspace which I've saved. I can always go back to this workspace and click on and reset guest. Once I click on reset guest, you can see it launches me back to my originally saved workspace. Right, so the next thing I also want to bring to your notice is that you can still modify your artboard even right now that you've created a document. Last time we were able to create a document, but right now we want to be able to modify and change our document to look, you know, maybe there is an update or an upgrade that we want to do. Maybe we want to change the paper size or something. We can still be able to do that here. We don't need to go back and create a new document altogether. Now when you look at your toolbar, you're going to see what they call like the artboard tool. Once I click on the artboard tool, I get to see the orientation again. You can see that I can change. Maybe I want to switch from this portrait to landscape. I can do that here. And if I want to select a different paper size, I can click on this. You can see it reads custom because the size of this paper is not part of the default sizes here in Adobe Illustrator. Once I click on this, I'm going to see many file size that are here. If I change to leather, you will see it change back to leather. I can do Ctrl Z to undo that. I can decide to custom a different size of artboard. I can click, you can see here I have my width and I have my height. The W stands for width, H stands for height. Alright, I can modify my value. I can decide to have this thing to be, say, 640. I can have this thing to be 640, and because I can decide to have here to be also 640. Let's say I'm working on a WhatsApp DP and I click enter. Here you can see I've been able to modify this. Once I'm okay with this, I can just click on this selection tool here and I'm back to this. Okay, so one more thing I also want to bring to your notice is that you can see the way my environment is looking. Maybe you're not the type that like working on a black background. You can always go to edit, scroll down to preferences. On preferences, you can click on general. Just go to user interface. On the user interface, you can decide to change from this medium black to maybe white. You can see how the interface is looking right now. Depending on your preference, you can decide to go to medium light and you have it like this. This is what I was using initially. You can even decide to go all the way dark, then you have the interface like this. So this thing helps your contrast when you are working, so you can always feel free to modify your user interface to suit what you want to do. I might even decide to keep mine as dark like this, so I'm going to click OK, and you can see that stays for me. I hope you have been able to learn something today. Alright, see you in the next video. Now let's look at the different selection tools we have available in Adobe Illustrator. There are 4 basic selection tools that we have available in Adobe Illustrator. One is the selection tool, the other is the direct selection tool, the third is the magic wand tool, and the last is the lasso tool. Now these tools have their distinct functions depending on what you want to do. If I'm on the selection tool, which the shortcut is V, you can see as I hover my mouse around it, Adobe kind of gives me an overview of what that particular object does. It selects an entire object. So once I click on this sun, you can see I've selected this sun. I can click and drag to another position. So you can see that I can click and drag to another position. That's basically what the selection tool does. I'm going to undo that by clicking Ctrl Z. The next tool I want to bring your attention to is the direct selection tool. You will see yourself using this tool in the future, maybe when you are creating logos or modifying your shape edges and the rest. So once I click on this object, if I select any shape I have here, for example this mountain, as I'm seeing it right now, it has like a very sharp peak and I don't want that. If I drag the contour points without selecting, you will see that all the edges of this triangle begins to get modified. That's not what I want. I'm going to undo that, Ctrl Z. If I just want to apply like a curvy mountain top on this, I can click on this contour point here and drag. You will see that I've modified this shape. Let me undo that. If I also want to increase the peak, I can select the edge and increase that edge by clicking and dragging to another position, right? So whenever I'm happy with what I have, I can decide to make this particular point being selected to have like a curvy point. So that's it. I can do the same to this one. Select the contour point, drag, already giving that the curvy point. I can select 2 objects at the same time by holding my shift key, and then if I want to apply the curve on this particular one, if I want to apply the curve on the both of them, I can click and drag. You can see all the points are changing. That's not what I actually want. I'm going to undo that. So let me just select this one and do it one after the other. Apply curvy edge here. Apply there. So that's basically what the direct selection tool does. So once you hover your mouse on it, it kind of gives you an overview. You can see that the shortcut of this particular direct selection tool is A. So once you type A on your keyboard, it takes you to this direct selection tool. If you type V, it takes you to selection tool. You can see that A V. So I can alter. So the next one I want to talk about is the magic wand tool. The magic wand tool is used to select objects that have similar shapes and similar color, for example. So once I click on the magic wand tool, if I select this cloud, every object that has this white color will get selected. So if I modify the color on this palette, everything here is going to get modified. Let me assume I give it red. You could see everything got modified. So actually behind this sun, there is another shape behind it that has white color. That's why it's being selected. Alright, so if I give it back white, everything turns back to white. Alright, so that's what the magic wand tool does. If I select this black color, everything that has black color on this particular interface gets selected. You can see that the shortcut is Y, right? So once I click on Y, it takes me to magic wand tool. If I click A, direct selection tool, V, selection tool, and then Y takes me to magic wand tool. The next one I want to talk about, which is the last selection tool, is the lasso tool. Once you click on the lasso tool, if you want to modify a particular shape, maybe you want to change the color, you just need to drag around that particular shape and it gets selected. You don't need to make a perfect circle, just drag around it and it gets selected. If you want to select multiple objects, you can drag within the object. If there are two opposite objects, you can hold your shift key and select another object. Holding your shift key, you can add multiple objects together. So you see that. So that's basically what the lasso tool does. Of course, like I said, each of these two, what they do is to modify or make change to any of your object. So anyone you find in handy can be useful at any point. You will find yourself using basically the direct selection tool and the selection tool. Maybe when you have more sophisticated and complicated diagram in the near future, or that you want to modify the color speedily, you can use the magic wand tool and then modify shapes that have similar characteristics or similar shapes and color. Yeah. Alright, I hope you've been able to learn something today. See you in the next video. Hello, so today we are going to be looking at the several shortcuts available to us here in Adobe Illustrator. You will notice that whenever you hover around an object, it kind of gives you the shortcut of the object. For example, the zoom tool, once you type Z, it takes you to zoom. When you type H, it takes you to hand. When you type E, it takes you to something else. If you type A, it takes you to direct selection tool. If you type Y, it takes you to magic wand tool. So, but there are several other available shortcuts in Adobe Illustrator. So once you click on edit, scroll down to keyboard shortcuts, you will see hundreds of shortcuts here. These are not the only one here. Once you click on this drop down and select menu commands, you'll be seeing several other shortcuts available to even some other functionalities included in the menu command. So on the file, you can see Ctrl N for new documents. If you want to create a new template, you can use Shift Ctrl N and several of them. So once you scroll down, you can begin to get acquainted to some of these shortcuts. Of course, you may not know everything at heart, but as time goes on, as you continue to practice and practice, you will get acquainted to some of these tools. So that is basically it. Once you select Adobe Default, you can see several other stuff here. Of course, you can also create your own commands, right? So let me go back to tools. If I want to give, like you can see, the arc doesn't have any shortcut or symbol, right? So if I want to assign a shortcut or assign a symbol to the arc, first of all, I have to ensure that that particular command is not already existing, because you wouldn't want to have any conflict when it comes to selecting shortcuts or symbol. So if I have that selected, I want to give it Control ? Or rather, let me give it Shift ? So once I click Shift ? you kind of see it gives it the shortcut of Shift, and then it gives it the symbol of ? Right? Let me undo that. Let's say I pick Shift C. For example, I can see that my anchor point is already Shift C. If I click Shift C, you can see it kind of throws up a warning here, right? And I wouldn't want to use the same shortcut for several other things, so I'm going to clear that. Let me use Shift ? So I have this. Once I have this already available, I can decide to save it by clicking OK. Once I click OK, I can decide to give it a name. I can name it Arc 2, right? And click OK. Once that is done, once I hover on the arc, you can see that my arc is now giving Shift ? Can you see that? Right. So if I want to go to my arc, I can click Shift ? and it launches me to my arc. You can see that. Let me change the outline color to yellow so that we can see it. So you can see my arc takes the form of Shift ? So I'm going to select everything, holding my Shift key, selecting multiple objects. If you want to select multiple objects, just hold your Shift key and select those objects. Multiple objects will get selected, and then you can delete by clicking your delete key on your keyboard. Alright, so that's it. Let's just experiment one of the notable shortcut that we are going to be using, and that will be zoom to. For instance, if I have this particular shape selected and I want to zoom into this shape alone, I can use the shortcut Control equal to. When I click on Control equal sign, it will zoom into the area of that particular selected object, and if I code Control minus, it will also zoom out. Control equals, it will zoom into. Control minus, it will zoom out. Zoom in, Control equal sign, zoom out, Control minus. I can pick this particular area, I can zoom in, Control plus, zoom out, Control minus. You will see this particular shortcut come in handy in the near future when you be doing a lot of things, and you wouldn't want to just select your zoom tool and click and drag. Of course, there are several other ways to do this particular thing. You can select your zoom tool, you click and drag within a region, Control 0 to zoom to fit, click and drag to select multiple region, Control 0 to fit. So you can see all these shortcuts comes in handy when you are working and you see yourself interchanging from one particular functionality to the other. Of course, if I zoom into a particular object, I can decide to also pan through the object. If I click on my hand tool, I can pan through the object to see several other things that is going on my shape, right? And I remember I can select a particular area and Control equal sign to zoom into that object, and if I want to pan, I can use the shortcut H to now pan through the object to see what is going on in some other area of my object. I hope this helped. Control 0 to fit again. Yeah, I believe you have been equipped with a lot of functionalities in Adobe Illustrator. So take out your time, explore the shortcuts, and see several ones that you can memorize as you work, as you advance in this course. You begin to see some of these shortcuts come handy. I'll also be telling you the ones that I use for you to also embrace them as you want. You can also come up with the ones you want. Of course, you can. Let's go ahead and delete what we created. You go back to Edit, Keyboard Shortcut, Arc. I have it selected and I'm gonna clear it. Once I clear it, it's gone. And I can click OK. I can overwrite it if I want to. Yes, so that is gone. So right now I wouldn't have that shortcut again. If I click Shift question mark, nothing happens again. So you can decide to change the shortcut of a particular tool and give it to another. You are free to do that. All right, see you in the next video. Welcome back. So excited to have you on this channel again today. So now we are going to look at how to import pictures, images, illustrations into your software. All right, because time is going to come, you're going to make some sketch and you want to import it here. So I'm going to show you how to do that quickly. The first way of doing that is go to your file, select place, click on that, and it takes you to select wherever you hit the picture or the file you want to import. So I'm going to select this and I'll click on place. Once I have that selected, I can place wherever I want. All right, so once I place this here, it stays here. See that, and with that I have this line here, and you can see the option is giving me. I can go straight and edit. If it's a picture, I can quickly go and edit in Photoshop or embed here. To embed is to get rid of this line. So once I click on embed, that line goes away. So I'm going to delete this. I'm going to do it one more time in a different way. I'm actually holding my mouse wheel to access the hand tool. That's what is going on here. All right, so you can actually do that. If you have a mouse, just hold your wheel and then you can do that too. So quickly go to file, go to place, select the object. I can actually double click. Once I double click on this, let me select the same thing, double click on that, it still give me the option of placing. I will just go straight to the edge of this artboard and then place it there. Then it kind of fits on my artboard. That's if what you want to import has the same size with your board. I already know that this is going to fit this board, so I'm going to embed this. Now the next way of doing this then is to actually just open up your file explorer. Just find wherever you saved the document and just click and drag the particular picture to the software. So I'm going to click on this and I'm going to drag it to this place. You can see the copy command coming up there. So once I click and drop, it kind of drops that shape here for me, and I can adjust and fit it wherever I want to. Of course, I can hold my Shift Alt to reduce the shape equally, or I can increase it holding my Shift Alt again. Holding my Shift Alt, you can see the increment happens on all the edges, but if I hold only my Shift key, it happens on just 2 edges. You can see that, while this other 2 stays constant. The other 2 here are the one that are adjusting because I'm holding my Shift key. Don't worry, you will still learn how all these things happen, but just know that if you hold your Shift key, the adjustment just happen in 2 edges, and once you hold your Shift Alt, it happens at the 4 edges. So that is what happened there. So the next thing I'm going to show you, I'm going to delete all this. The next thing I'm going to show you is the third way of importing something. Say you have this illustration. Let's say you kind of do something and you want to import it in Adobe Illustrator to begin to sketch. The best way of doing that is to import as template. Now when you import as template and the object comes into this particular interface, it kind of fades it away, makes it so transparent, and it loses some detail, so that you'll be able to distinguish between your paintings and your sketching. So I will just quickly go to File, go to Place, select the object or the image I want to. Let me just select this one. Instead of just having it just as link, I will also add template. Alright, so once I click on Place, see what happens. It kind of fades this away. Let me show you the main one. So this is the main one. Let me just decrease it a bit. Can you see the difference? This one is kind of fade away a little, while this one has all the color details. So I'm going to delete this. Now the next thing that happens is when you look at this place, you would see it has like a template layer being made and locked, so that you can begin to sketch on top of this, right? I can unlock by clicking on this. I can just maybe make it to fit this particular place and then lock it back. So that the reason why this thing happens is, now I've imported this thing and then I have this thing as my background. I can toggle to close it or open it, close, open, and then begin to sketch on top. Locked so that I won't be able to just move it easily, right? So these are some ways you might want to import your object or import your shape, depending on what you are doing. If you want to sketch something, the best way to import is to import as a template. If you are importing a picture you want to use as a background, maybe you are building a flyer or building a brochure or whatever you are doing, you can import just by placing. But if you want something that you are going to sketch, maybe you are sketching brand identity, or you want to model some doodling you did, you can import as template. You can also import the other way around and just lock it manually, but your choice, right? I'm just showing you several ways of doing the same thing. All right, I hope you've been able to learn something on how to import your images into Adobe Illustrator. All right, see you in the next video. Let's talk about the importance of Shift key on Windows or Command key on the Mac. So let's say you want to move your object horizontally, vertically, or even diagonally. That's where the Shift key or Command key comes into play. So let's say I want to move this object from this position to this position. I will click on the object, but you could see I can be on any angle that I want. So if I want to lock it, I'll have to hold my Shift key, and you can see now I can move horizontally and I can move diagonally. I can move vertically. So that is it. So holding this Shift key, I can move it from this position to this position. See, holding my Shift key to this position, holding my Shift key to this position. So these are the importance of the Shift key. The next key we are going to talk about is the Alt key or Option key on the Mac. So let's say you want to duplicate an object. You can click on the object holding your Alt key You can drop it at any position you want. You could see it's been duplicated. Click on the object, hold your Alt key. You could see a double cursor on the shape that you are holding. Then you drop it, click, hold your Alt key, release. So you have the shape being duplicated. I'm going to delete all this. So let me show you the power of Ctrl D. So you clicked on an object and then you kind of duplicated the object, and then you want to maintain this same distance between these first two objects. You can simply click on Ctrl D and then it will keep dropping that shape within the same distance. There is one more thing that you need to know about the Alt key. You can actually hold both Alt key and Shift key if you want to duplicate an object, say vertically, horizontally, or even diagonally. So I click on this object, holding my Shift Alt, it locks it on my horizontal, vertical, and even diagonal. You can see that. So of course, if I release to duplicate the object to this position, click again, holding my Shift Alt. If I release to drop it at this position, holding my Shift Alt. If I release, it will drop it at this position. So this is how to make use of these keys on your keyboard. Welcome back again. Let's look at the basic shapes in Adobe Illustrator. Let's start with the square shape and the rectangle shape. So if you go to this particular tool here, you will find several tools that are available on Adobe Illustrator. First of all is the rectangle tool. Now this rectangle tool can draw both square and rectangular shape. Once you click and drag, it makes rectangular shape automatically. But if you want to make a square shape, you will have to hold your Shift key. If you hold your Shift key, it makes a square shape. You could see that. Now holding just the Shift key alone makes this particular first position or first point a point of reference. You can see that happening here. But if you want to make the center point the point of reference, you have to hold the Shift Alt. Holding the Shift Alt, you can see that the center is now the point of reference. So you can see that. So if I hold my Shift key, this point, any point that I start from, becomes the point of reference. If I hold my Shift Alt, you can see the way the cursor is looking right now is changed. If I click and drag, the center becomes the center of reference. Now the next thing I want to point your attention to is the rounded rectangle shape. Now the rounded rectangle shape is used to create a rounded edge rectangle or square shape. Once I click and drag, you will see automatically it makes this shape. If I hold my Shift Alt to make a square shape, it also happens. But that doesn't mean that this particular sharp edged rectangle cannot be converted to this. Of course, if you remember your direct selection tool, once you click on the object, you could actually convert any point to become rounded. So I can actually remember what I taught you previously on direct selection tool. Once you click on an edge, you can make an adjustment on that particular edge. So that you can also do here. You can even click on two edges, holding your Shift key, highlight two edges and then round them off. So these are some possibilities that you can also do here in Adobe Illustrator. So there are many ways to do the same thing. So you can either create a rectangle using the normal rectangle tool or even the rounded rectangle tool. Of course, this you can still convert it to become sharp edge. Once you click on the objects, just select any of the contours, click and drag, and it becomes a sharp edge rectangle. Now the next shape we are going to discuss is the ellipse tool. Once you right click on this, you're going to find the ellipse tool here. Now this ellipse is used to create two things. You can use it to create circles, you can use it to create ellipse. Circle is a shape that has one radius, while an ellipse has two radius, the major and the minor one. If you have a mathematics background, you will understand what I mean. Just like the way you land from the square, once you hold your Shift key, you can make a perfect circle. To say that, having the first location the first, let me say the first arc place, you pick your first point becoming the center of reference or the place of reference. But if you want to make the center point become the place of reference, you just hold your Shift Alt and you can see the center becomes the point of reference. Now if you want to make an ellipse shape, of course you could actually click and drag without holding any Shift or Alt key. Once you do that, you just make a normal ellipse shape. See that? Of course, if you want to make like diagonal ellipse like this, you just have to bring your cursor close to any of the edges. Holding your Shift key, you turn, you can see that, 45 degrees, 45 degrees, 45 degrees, and then to 0. So those are the things that you can do here. Of course, if you know the size of the circle you want to draw or the ellipse you want to draw, you can click on the shape. Once you click anywhere, you could set the width and the height of the shape. If I change any here, let's say I make this 30, the width maybe to 50, change it to 50 as well, it's going to form a normal circle for me. See that? If I want to make an ellipse shape, of course, like I told you, it has 2 radius, so I can make here 50 and then make here 100. So that's going to form an ellipse shape. So that's it. Of course, here you can still bring your cursor around any edge and then you can rotate the object. See that? Around any edge, you can rotate the object 45 degrees holding my Shift key. That's how I'm able to rotate this on 45 degrees. You can also rotate on any angle you want by removing your hand from the Alt key. Then you can rotate all through any angle of your choice. The next thing we are going to look at is the polygon tool. Let's look at the polygon tool. Now the polygon tool is found somewhere here. You can see that. Once you have it selected, the polygon tool could be used to draw any size of shape starting from 3 up until infinity, wherever you want to stop. So once I click on that, I can select the number of sides that I want. If I select 3, it's going to make a triangle shape. If I click again and select 4, it's going to make a square or rectangular shape. If I select 5, it's going to make pentagon. If I select 6, it's going to make 6-sided. If I select 8, it's going to make octagon. Of course, you could see this little diamond shape here. You could see it there, little diamond shape, having like plus or minus when you bring your cursor there. That means if I go up, it's going to reduce the number of sizes and form triangle. If I go down, it's going to increase the number of sides to higher sides polygon. So these are ways that you can form your polygon depending on the shape that you are drawing. The last one we are going to look at is the star shape. Now once you right click again, you're going to see the star tool here. The same way you use a polygon, that's also the same way you use your star tool. Once you click anywhere, you can select the number of points your star should have. So say you want it to have like 4 sides. Once I click on that, it's going to have like 4 point stars. If I click again and select like 5, it's going to make 5-sided star. If I want to make like, let's say 100, of course I have that privilege, it's going to make the one that has 100 points. So you can see, if you're somebody that is into comics, you could actually see that this shape looks like maybe a bust, a fire bust or something, or combo. Yeah, you can use your star shape to actually make those things happen. Of course, you can still rotate here. You can still rotate holding your Shift key. If you want, you can even remove your hand from Shift key and you can rotate to any point you want. So I believe this basic tool will be able to guide you on how to, create whatever shape you want to create, or whatever shape of your choice. Let's look at some other tools that you are going to find handy in your journey in Adobe Illustrator. So let's first look at the line tool. The line tool is somewhere here. Once you click on that, it's going to give you the line segment tool, and you can draw from one point to another. So once I click on this point, if I hold my Shift key, if I want to make a straight line, 0 degree, 180 or 360 degree line, I hold my Shift key, it's going to lock that line to make a straight line. You can see that happening here. Of course, you can see my line doesn't have like any color here, so I can click on that and give it a stroke color. or an outline color. Let's say I give it like let's say blue color, so you can see my line properly. If I have the line again from this point, holding my shift key to this point, it makes 45 degrees. You can see that happening. If I hold my shift key from this point to this point, I'm going to make a vertical line. If I hold it again from point A to point B, I'm going to make like 135 or 315 angle. So you can see that happen. Of course, if I want, I wouldn't lock my lines. I can just freely draw on any angle that I want. So just click and drag and stop, click and drag and stop. Now if you know the length of any line you want to draw, once you click on anywhere, you can select the length of line. Let's say I want to draw 100, and then let me say I'm going to want to keep it at angle of 0. If I click OK, it's going to make a straight line. You see that happening here? If I click on again, maybe I want to make the one that has like say 200, and I want to keep this thing at 135. Automatically it's going to make that, and I click OK. Then I'm going to see that. So this is how you can use your line tool to make any length of line you want to draw. The next step is the arc tool, and the arc tool is going to come in handy when you want to make some basic curves. So once you right click on the line tool, you're going to see the arc tool here. Once you click on that, clicking from point A to point B makes this kind of point. You can see that happening here. Point A to point B makes this. Just clicking and dragging. Point A to point B, point A to point B. So that's basically how to make use of your arc tool. Of course, the same way, if you know the axis, the X and Y axis of your arc, you can actually put that here and then click OK, and it's going to make that for you as well. So the next step is how to make use of the spiral. Now the spiral is also found the same place you get your arc tool, you just beneath it. Once you click on that, you can click from one point to another point, and it makes a spiral. From one point to another point, and it makes a spiral. Now there are several styles for this spiral, but you get to find these styles once you click, and then you can switch from one style to another. The ones we drew has always been on this style, so I'm going to switch to this one to be able to make these two. Once I click OK, see that happening here. If I select my point A to point B, it makes this kind of shape here. If I pick from point A up to point B, it makes this particular shape here. So this is how to make use of these three important tools in Adobe Illustrator. So guys, let's talk about the psychology of colors. There are several colors to work with apart from this basic one that we have represented here. Of course, you could see I've highlighted what some colors mean. You can take out time to just look through some of these things to help you identify what color does what. Now in Adobe Illustrator, we have some amount of colors already here in your swatches, but there are thousands of colors here in Adobe Illustrator that you can pay attention to, that you can use to do your work. Let's say you get a job that is under agriculture or real estate, food, jewelries, royalty, and then you don't know what colors to use. You could actually go to this particular icon here, the swatch libraries. Once you click on that, it will give you a range of different swatches that you can use. If you click on beach, you will see all the colors associated with beach. So with this, you could actually see the colors that you can work with, and you can click on any object and select any of this color here. Okay, you can go to your swatches and call up anyone. Let's say scientific, you can pick anyone. Let's say we pick this. You can see that these are the colors associated with this plate. Now this is not just the only place you could find colors. You can take out time to explore all these here. Take a look at this. Of course, if you don't have this thing here, colors, just go to Windows, go to colors and select this. You will have this here. Now on colors, you could see that we have this color spectrum where we can pick colors from. You can see that we can navigate and pick any color from this particular spectrum. You can see that. Of course, there is also another one there, color guide. If you don't have any of these, just go to window and find color and color guide, and you'll be able to have the same experience that I'm having right now. On the color guide, you can see these are colors associated with beverages. You can see the name here, beverages. If you are looking for something else, you can click on this drop down here and see several color groups. Just like we saw on the swatches, you could see some other ones. You can select fruits and we will see color associated with fruits. You can click again and select kid stuffs and we will see color associated with kids. These are some of the ways you can pick colors here. Let's say you pick this green and you don't want this particular green, you want something else. You can actually double click on this fill color here, and here you can select any kind of green you want. See that I have this, I can double click again to drag this so down to become very deep green depending on whatever you are working on. So this is how to add fill color to any shape or any object that you have in this. I'm going to close this. If you want to apply outline color, just make sure that this particular stroke is selected or the outline color is selected. So once you click on that, you'll be able to pick any color you want. Any color you want. You can pick this and give it this color. You can pick this and give it a fill color of this. Let's say I give it red, give this yellow, give this blue. So this is, of course, I can have both fill color and stroke color. I can select this, click on the fill color and pick any color of my choice. Of course, I can even add gradient color. Gradient is having multiple color in a shape. We're still going to do that in detail. This is what you can explore some of this. These are different colors. This one is patterns, textures. Yeah, this is it. So just take out time to read through, maybe go to Google and research the psychology of colors and get what color does what. I believe there will be a lot of resources that can guide you through what color does what. Let's say you get a job on real estate, you can quickly go to Google and type real estate and you will see several colors associated with real estate, and from there you can pick colors for any work that you are doing. Today we'll be looking at Pathfinder. So there is this tool called Pathfinder that helps you to do all manner of things to your shapes. I usually have mine located here, you can see it here, but if you don't have this, just quickly go to Windows, scroll down to Pathfinder, and once you click on that, it's going to come up here for you, or come up anywhere in your window for you. So the first one I want to bring your notice is on the one called Unite, because here you're going to see some couple of things that you can do. We have shape modes and we have pathfinders. Now what Unite does is to, just like the name sounds, to unite something, to unite these two shapes together. Once I click on Unite, you could see the two shapes are now united together. Another one I want to bring your attention to is on minus front. That means I'm going to subtract the front one from the back one. Once I click on subtract on the minus front, you can see what happened. Once I click on the intersect, it's going to intersect these two shapes and form only the one in the middle. So that's what you see here. You could see that all the shapes kind of gives you like a clue what's going to happen. Exclude is going to exclude the one in the middle. See that? Divide simply means to divide these objects. So once I click on divide, and if I click on group, you can see that all the shapes divided. Wherever they are intersected or something, you could see that they are now divided. To trim, once I click on trim, you will see what it does. You could see it trimmed something right now. Once I ungroup, you could see what happened. To merge, it's going to merge these two shapes together. You can see that they are being merged together, but you can decide to ungroup if you want to. Once you ungroup, it looks exactly like the trim. To crop, once you click on crop, you can see what it does. It cropped that intercept into the front one. Outline is going to form outline of these shapes. Once you click on outline, see what it did. It outlined the shape. Let me create the stroke so you can see what happened. So it outlined the shape minus back. So once I click on minus, you can see what happened. So these are basically how you make use of the pathfinders. You may find this handy when you are building logo or doing any sophisticated shape that you want. Even some of your graphic work might require you to make use of pathfinder in one case or the other. Now let's look at the shape builder tool. The shape builder tool operates like Pathfinder, but it has a very different feature that the Pathfinder doesn't have. So let's say you have some shapes like this merged together and you want to create something out of it. Maybe let's say you want to create something that has this shape. Now you have all this circle together like this. First of all, you need to highlight the object that you want to reshape. Once you click on your shape builder tool, you just select the places you want to mesh together. So once you have that, it's been meshed together. Now the next thing to do is to remove all this part that you don't want. So hold your Alt key so that the plus sign you are seeing right now on your push will change to subtract. So once you have that, once you click on anyone, it goes, it vanishes, and it vanishes. So with that, you are left with this. Of course, you can fill the color here if you wish to. Let me just give it a yellow color. Now the same thing goes for this one. First of all, you highlight the objects and then select your shape builder tool. Let's say you want to make this shape, so just select the ones that you want to make, hold your Alt key, then deselect the ones that you don't want to have here. So it goes. You can still add color to it here. Let's say I have this sketched logo that I want to create. The first thing I'm going to do is to have my shapes around whatever sketch I have, and then select all the shapes and then use my shape builder to add the part of this shape that I want to use to form that specific sketch that I have. So once highlighted, I will get my shape builder tool and connect all the parts that are together. All the parts, connect this part, connect this part, connect this part. Keep connecting the parts that are together, connecting all the parts, connecting all the parts. Then next, I'm going to subtract all the part that I don't need. I'm going to subtract all the part that I don't need, holding my Alt key. Subtract all of them. Subtract all of them. Subtract all of them, holding my Alt key. So once I have that form, you could see for sure that this looks like this. So let me just color it. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is to add this particular shadow that you are seeing. You can see the shadows. So I'll get my circle again. I can see some excesses, some lines that I don't want. Let me just select here, remove it, select here, remove it. Get my circles again. Let me make the outline yellow so that it will be obvious. Get the first circle here, get the second circle about around here. So once I have that done, then I will select these two shapes, get my shape builder tool once again. Let me select everything, get my shape builder tool again, and then add here to this, subtract this position, then I'll be left with this. You can see with this, I already have the shadow that I desire. You can recolor it, give it another deep color, then give here the other color. So you can see with the shape builder tool, you will become phenomenal and unstoppable on whatever you want to create. Welcome back. So now let's talk about the pen tool. The pen tool is the tool you use to create freehand sketches, line, and even make your own curves. So the pen tool is located here. You can press your P on your keyboard and it takes you to pen tool. That's the shortcut. So once I click on that, I can make a line, I can make a curve with pen tool. So basically, before I start showing you an example, let me just show you what you could do. You can start from a point, click at this point, click at this point, click at this point, click on this point, and make like a full shape. Alright, so if I want to close this thing off, once I bring my pen tool close to the start point, you will see this 0 symbol under my pen tool. Once I click on that, it finishes off this particular shape, and I can add any color I want to it. I can decide to add blue or whatever color I want. Right now I'm not going to give it any color, I'm going to place it at none. And you can also add points. Once you bring your pen tool close to any line that you've created, you can see that plus under the pen tool. You can add more points if you want. You can either use your pen tool directly to do this, or you can go to your pen tool, right click, and you will see the add anchor point. That's the same thing that you are seeing. The plus sign again is here. So if I click on that, I've added a point to this, right? And I can use my direct selection to make this point visible. I can click and drag. You can see that particular point I added is now part of this shape. Okay, of course, you know that once you click at a point, you can click on the contour and make a curve. You can see that happening here. So I'm going to undo that. So let me show you again how to make curves with the pen tool. I'm going to delete this. If you want to make curves in pen tool, what you need to do is just to click and drag. Once you click at a point and drag, it changes from being a line to becoming a curve. See that? It becomes a curve. Once you click and drag, it becomes curve. It becomes curve. So let's go right immediately into the example so that we can learn better. I will do some while you will do the rest. So once I click on, I select my pen tool, I'm going to make this simple shape. Start at a point. If I hold my shift key, I can make a straight line. See that? I'm holding my shift key and I can make straight lines, even diagonal, vertical, horizontal lines. So I'm going to stop at this point. Even if I make a mistake, I can always readjust this using what? My direct selection tool. So I'm going to end off this here. I'm going to just make some small mistakes so that we can use the direct selection to fit the remaining stuff. Let's say I make a mistake, I forgot to add this point, so that I can use like the add to add more points. I'm going to make a mistake and add 2 more points here so that we can learn from our mistakes. Alright, so this has happened. Now you could see if I bring my cursor close to this point, you could see that minus sign. I can also go to my pen to right click and select the delete anchor point. Alright, so if I select the delete anchor point, I can actually click at this point and have it gone, right? And remember, we can always add point. Right click on add point. I'm going to add 1 more point here, and now I'm going to use my direct selection to adjust whatever mistake I made. So I'll click at this point, drag it to where it's supposed to be. So I'm going to drag out this particular point and finish off everything. Okay, so with that, I have my crown illustrated. So let me make one more example with the curve. I'm going to show you this. I'm going to do this too so that you will get to do this. Once you do this, I believe you will learn more from it, and also try the ones I also showed you here so that you will get your hand acquainted with the pen tool. Alright, so I'm going to pick the pen tool again. If I want to make a circle, to make a full circle, you basically need just 4 points, right? I will start at a point, click and drag, click and drag, click and drag. Of course, I can still adjust all this click and drag. Okay, so this is one way of doing it. Let me show you the way. This is one way. You can then begin to adjust all this. Let me show you the best way to do this. The best way to do this is actually start your first point as a curve, right? So I'm going to click on this anchor point, holding my shift key. I'm going to click and drag. You see, it makes like this handle, these two handles here, going left and right. You can see immediately it became a curve. I will get to this point that I feel that is the middle of this circle. Click and drag again, still holding my shift key. Get to this point, click and drag, still holding my shift key. Don't worry, I'm still going to modify or make any quick changes to this. Still holding my shift key, click and drag. Still holding my shift key, I'll click and drag. So now with this that I've just created, I can go to my direct selection tool and begin to modify things. So once I click at this anchor, I'm going to go straight to the handle and align it so well to this line I made until I'm comfortable with what I have. Once I'm comfortable, I will just let go. Click on this handle, drag it out a bit. Click on this handle, let me drag it in a bit. Click on this anchor point, select this handle. Alright, so once I'm comfortable, you can see I've already made like my circle. I can get my anchor point again. I can make these quick lines. Start from a point, click at this point, click at this point, and then click at this point. Alright, in the same way I've made this circle, you can still make all these other remaining 4 circles too. Let me go to the pier, click at this point, click and drag, click and drag, click and drag. I'm making some circular shapes. Click, and you can see with the pen tool you can create some sophisticated shapes, you know, so that you don't get limited with just using the line tool that we learned earlier. With the pen tool you can do much more. All right, so creating these curves, I'm going to finish up this here. All right, see that? So I'm going to get my direct selection tool. You can see this place is not looking good. Going to zoom in a bit, get my direct selection tool, click at this point and begin to readjust this place, and readjust here, look at this place, readjust here. Because remember, I can decide to remove an anchor point. Let me just delete this anchor point so it can give me more room to do some things. Okay, that's gone. Click at this point, then I can drag this to wherever I want. That makes sense. Click at this point, adjust here a bit. Click at this point, adjust here. If I need to add more anchor point, I can do so. Till I get what I want. Once I'm happy with it, look at this point, adjust it. Okay, so yeah, let me try to know if I can get here more. Perfect, that's cool. All right, so I can click at the pen tool again and create this circle. Select first point, drag, and then finish up. See that? And delete that and make it the usual way. First of all, click on first point and drag, so everything becomes smooth. Drag, and then finish up. And drag. See that? Once I'm okay with it, if I feel this particular shape is the same thing with this shape, I'm gonna click my direct tool, click on the shape, holding my shift alt I'm going to duplicate that. I'm holding my Shift Alt, duplicate this to this point. If there's any other adjustment, I can still make it here. Go back to my pen tool, select this point, make a curve, 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 select this point, make a curve. Alright, once I'm happy with that, of course I can always do my adjustment. Let me zoom in a bit to see what is going on there. Make some adjustments. Make some adjustments. Because you could see, because here is sharp, because I started with just clicking at a point. If I want to stay at this point, I can start to click at this anchor point and make it curve by selecting this contour. You see that? I can make it curve, and with that curve I kind of have more handles here. See that? I have more handles here. So there are many ways to do the same thing here in Adobe Illustrator. So even if you make a mistake, you can still make some adjustments. So there are room for adjustments here. So you may not get it 100% the first time. If you want to add more anchor points, you can add more anchor points if you wish to. Alright, till I get it perfectly, until I'm happy with what I have, I will stop. Okay. Okay. If I want, I can still add some anchor point here so that I can shift here very well. Anchor point, click at this point, drag it in a bit. See that fills this gap. I can add some anchor point here to fill in this gap. I can even add more here if I'm having difficulty with the ones I have, to fill in this one too. So you could see that is basically how to use your direct selection tool to make some modification using the handle. I'll still get my pen tool to finish off this. Start by creating the anchor point. Create anchor point, sorry. Back one. Okay. Click the first point, click and drag. Click the next point, click and drag, 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 click and drag. And then I'll start same thing, start modifying again, start making some good adjustments. Zoom in here a bit to see what's going on there. So once I'm happy with what I have, I can stop. So with this, you've mastered how to use the pen tool. So try to do this one, try to draw this sophisticated shape and see what you're gonna get. Once you are done drawing, you can always add the color you want to it. So you could see that, play around this and select any color you want. Alright, so you can see the finished version here, what I have here. So I hope you'll be able to do yours. So that's how you create some of this shape apple, pineapple, and the rest. You can use your leverage of pen tool to draw that shape from ground up. You can even go online and find some other shapes and try to sketch it using the pen tool. Alright, I hope you have been able to learn how to use the pen tool. See you in the next video. Welcome back. So in this tutorial we're going to be looking at how to use the curvature tool. The curvature tool is just the opposite of the pen tool. The pen tool basically is used to draw lines, while the curvature is used to make curves. And with this same tool you can still alternate from making curve to lines. Whichever one comes handy to you, you feel free to use it to create whatever illustration you want to make, or create whatever shape or freehand sketch you want to make. So the curvature tool is just opposite the pen tool. Once I click on that, what it does is by default it creates rounded shapes. See that? By default it creates rounded shapes. That's what it does by default. I'm going to delete this, select this tool, delete. So I'm going to be making this circle with the curvature tool and also show you how to use the curvature tool to create lines. So I'll click on that. I'll select my first point. I don't need to drag anything at this point because by default the curvature tool just makes curve. And I'll pick my second point, I'll pick my third point, I'll pick my fourth point, and I will complete it at this point. Now if I make any mistake and I need to make any adjustment, I can bring my direct selection tool, click this point, and then drag it maybe down. If I drag it down, then I will need to begin to make my adjustment using my handles and the rest to make the complete curve. Let me still go back to my curve tool, my curvature tool. Let me zoom in a bit so that we can see what's going on here. My curvature tool, pick my first point, pick my second point, pick my third point, pick my fourth point, and then complete. You can see it's easy to make circle with the curvature tool, or to make curves actually with the curvature tool, not just circle. So you can make complicated curves with the curvature tool. I know in the last assignment you might have struggled using the pen tool to create that other shape that we had there, but you can see yourself in the future, alternating from the pen tool to the curvature tool, or even make use of one to create whatever you want. So now we can also use the curvature tool to make a line. You could see these are lines, So once I click at my first point and click at the second point, you can see it makes a curve, and I don't want that. So what I do is, instead of just clicking once, I will have to click twice. So if I click twice, it makes that particular curve line to become a line. So I will click at this point once, you will see it still makes a curve. I will double click and it makes a line. And if I want to finish off, if I click once, it makes a curve, but if I click twice, it makes a line. See that? So this makes a whole world of difference when you know how to use these tools. Let me zoom in again to make this shape as well. Alright, I'll bring my curve tool, my curvature tool, pick my first point, pick my second point. You can see it makes that curve for me. Let me go back a bit and go up a little more. It makes that curve for me. So instead of picking this point and it continues making circle, and I want to make this small arc here, I'm going to pick this point so that once I move my cursor out, you can see it makes that inner curve here. Pick this point. Pick this point, pick this point, pick this point, pick this point, then finish up this point. Of course, I can still use my direct selection tool, you guessed it right, to make some modifications here. So once I click that, I go to my handle and then begin to make sure that everything is well aligned till I get what I want. Seems like it's even easy to use the curvature tool to make these curves. So these are very good tools that once you master in Adobe Illustrator, you wouldn't have any issue in the future when you are creating logos or whatever sophisticated shape you're going to be working with. So I'm still going to get my curve tool, click at this point, click at this point. Let me just go back a bit. get it again. Let me delete this point. Let me start from this point. Look at this point. Look at this point. Look at this point. This point. Look at this point. Look at this point. Look at this point, and then finish up here. Alright, I can still get my, you guys just try it. That's solution 2. Click at this point, drag it up a bit. See that? So it makes this quickly. Curve 2. Take this point, second point, third point, fourth point, and then finish off. First point, I can even go anti-clockwise. Finish off. Click my first point, second point, point, fourth point, first point. I can even pick one more point here and then finish off here. So you can see that is how to use the curvature tool. If you have any slight modification, you know what to do. You guys should try direct selection tool to make any slight modification. I'm going to zoom back and then add color. Select anyone, add any color you want. And any color you want to it. Again, this one, yes. So with this, I hope you've been able to learn one or two things today that's going to come in handy within the week to practice with. So now your assignment for this tutorial video is to just try as much as possible to create these two shapes using the curvature tool, so that you can get acquainted on how to use this particular tool to create your own shapes. I'm going to leave, of course, the link to this on the description video. Just go ahead, download it, it's free, and then create your own shapes with it. Alright, see you in the next video. Welcome back. Let's talk about clipping marks. Clipping marks is basically a way of placing an object inside another object. Alright, so let me just scroll to this portion and show you what I mean. So if you have these two objects, the object under is going to be marks to take the shape of the object above it. That's what clipping mark does. So if I select these two objects and go to object, scroll down to clipping marks and then marks it together, the yellow object which is on the background is going to take the shape of the ash shape that is on the foreground. So if I click on that, you could see the one on the foreground became the reference shape of the object underneath. So if I double click this, you can still see that polygon, but then it has been marked to take the shape of the curved polygon. I'm going to click out to see what happened. So that's basically what masking means. That's what clipping marks does. So if I have this shape and I want it to take the reference of this circle, first of all I will bring the shape close to the circle. So if I select these two together, I'm going to go to object, go to clipping marks, click on make, or Ctrl+7 to make that happen. You can see the object has been clipped into this shape. If I bring this one close, you see it's above it, I'm going to drag it to be under the rectangle. If I go to layer, this is my layer panel, right? Click on layer, drag the particular image down to that rectangle, select it together, Ctrl+7, that one I'm going to do now. To make that happen, I can double click on the object, use my arrow key or direction key on my keyboard to direct the shape where I want, or even use my mouse cursor to drag it to the position that I want. Once I'm satisfied with what I have, I can just click out. That happens. Let me drag this to this position. Of course, it's already behind this. Click on the one on the foreground, Ctrl+7, and boom, that happens again. So I can double click on this and drag to the position that I want. Alright, so I believe this helps to merge your images together using clipping marks to take the form of an object above that particular image. Alright, see you in the next video. So today we are going to be talking about the polar grid tool. The polar grid tool is used to create concentric circles and it's located just right below your line segment tool. Once you click on the polar grid tool, you can click on anywhere on your artboard and you could see several options that you can modify. You can play around with this to be able to see some things that you may find useful in your creative works. So by default I have it set like this, and if I click OK, let me give it an outline color of white. Holding my Shift Alt, I'm gonna increase the size. So now you can see that I have some strokes here. This stroke that I have here, let me click on that so you can see what I'm talking about. The radial dividers, you could see these 5 lines are the radial dividers, while these 5 gaps you are seeing here are the concentric dividers. If I make this to become 0, I wouldn't have these lines anymore. And if I click OK, you could see I have something that looks like this. I can increase my number of dividers. Say like here I have about 15. If I modify this to become 15, I will have more concentric dividers for this circle of 100 by 100. If I click OK, you can see I have much more dividers for that particular circle. Let me increase the size a bit so you can see what it is. Alright, so if I pick it again, click on anywhere, I can modify the width and height. I can make it to become 200, and if I'm happy with this and if I click OK, you could see I will have something that looks exactly like this, right? So let me click again, click anywhere, change here to 200, maybe 100, keep here 200. If I click OK, it's gonna make something that looks exactly like this. Okay, right. So there are several other things. This particular shape we have here at Adobe Illustrator also kind of comes in handy when you want to play around with your shape builder tool. Say you want to make some shapes from this, you can use your shape builder tool to do that. Once you highlight your object, get your shape builder tool. I'm going to give it yellow. Confuse here to be 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 yellow. You can even get another color. Give here another color. Give here another color. Yeah. So you see I can play around this and achieve something else. So depending on what you want to create, these cues here kind of distorts your concentric dividers and also your radial divider. If I reduce this to say, let me get it to maybe around 184. If I click OK, let me keep here at 100 so you can see what is going on. Let me make it 400 or rather 250 by 250. It can be much big. Okay, if I click OK, you can see I have, this is what it looks like. The concentric circles are no longer equal, right? Let me click again. If I increase it, click OK, you can see how the concentric circle came around. So depending on what you want to create, you can always play around this. If I play also with this cue under the radial divider, my radial divider will not be poorly spaced, right? So let me have here maybe 5, and let me increase here. If I decrease there, let me delete this so that we can see what we are doing. Delete this, delete this, delete this, delete this. Nowhere. Okay, let me have here 200 by 200. Have this clear. This, click OK. You can see it's no longer epi spaced. I'm gonna click anywhere, get this 10 to 0. Maybe increase it to positive. If I click OK, you can see it's no longer epi spaced. So depending on whatever you want to create, you can always play around with your tool and achieve whatever kind of shape. And with the shape builder tool, you can construct any kind of shape. Another thing I want to show you is you can add fill color. I can make it to become, maybe I make it this red color. Now you can actually add or clip mask an image inside multiple concentric circles created with your grid tool. If I click on this, what I want to make sure that I have here highlighted is the create compound path for ellipses. Once I click on this and have it checked, it's going to merge all these concentric circles together to compound them so that I can clip mask an image inside it. So once I click OK, this particular shape is already compounded. They are together. The difference, if you look at this particular shape right here, if I want to merge these two things together, if I click Ctrl 7, you see it's losing some details. The image was able to be clip masked here, but clip masked on the smallest circle here. That's not what I want to achieve. I want to have this thing clip masked all through the body of this circle. So that's why I need to compound them. When you compound concentric circles together, you'll be able to see that whole circle as single image, even though there are different circles that make that particular circle. I'm going to bring this thing back down, select this that's already been compounded, click on what, Ctrl 7 to mask, or go to my object, scroll down to clipping mask and click make. You could see I now have this particular image inside my concentric circle compounded vector. So that is what I have here. So I hope this helps you to grow your skill and you find this thing very handy in the future. See you in the next video. Welcome back, guys. Another tool we are going to be looking at is the warp tool. The warp tool is used for distortion, to play around. Maybe if you have a concentric circle like the example I have here, you want to kind of make the contours look a little bit different from the regular circle. You can use your warp tool to achieve that. So I'm gonna make like these concentric contours. Right click on this, get my polar grid tool. Let me have the outline to be white. Click on anywhere. I'm gonna keep this at 200, make this 1015. I'm gonna keep my radar divider to be 0 because I don't want those lines here. Let me uncheck this and click OK. I'm gonna drag this thing down. So you can see by default this has like concentric circles, but then using the warp tool I will be able to distort this circle. Around where you have your width tool, underneath you have it here. The shortcut is Shift R. I'm going to click on that, and with this I can distort this shape the way it's looking. See what I'm having? Yeah. So you can see I've distorted the shape. So that's what you can achieve with this. I can even distort it more. Yeah. I want to look exactly as what I want. Once I'm comfortable with it, I can stop. Okay, so you can see I have this circle being distorted looking like this. I can also create some rough edges also on the circle. Alright, so I'm gonna duplicate this, holding my shift alt to duplicate this. So I'm going to make these edges to be rough. I will go just to my effect, scroll down to my distort and transform, and click on roughen. Once I click on roughen, you can see I've roughened this part, and I can smoothen it. Let me reduce the details until I get something that looks just very minimal like this. I'm pressing my arrow key on my keyboard to reduce that. I also reduce the size of the distortion. Yeah, let me keep it at 1 by 1. If I click OK and I'm happy with this, I kind of have like those rough edges here right now. So that's what we've been able to achieve with the warp tool. So if I have my polar grid tool selected, I'm going to make this particular circle shape. I'm going to keep this the same way it is, but then I'm going to create compound path, because remember I want to have all these circles merged together so I will be able to click mask an image inside the object. So I'm going to click on this, click OK. So I have it this way. Get my warp to distort this a bit. Okay. Once I'm happy with that, drop my object to be under it, select the two objects, holding my Ctrl 7 to clip mask, or scroll to your object, go down to your clipping marks and then make. So this is how to make this happen. I hope this helped. Just practice this, and I believe in the future you're going to find this thing handy when you are creating some of your unique contents. Alright, see you in the next video. Welcome back, guys. So today we are going to be looking at the width tool. The width tool is used to vary the thickness of your stroke. So you can vary the thickness of this outline using your width tool. So the width tool is located here. I'm going to select that. You can see the little video Adobe is giving us. We can see what the tool does. It varies the thickness of the stroke. So of course I created this using my curvature tool. You already have that in the previous video. In case you've forgotten how to do that, just quickly watch the video. Alright, so I'm going to click on anywhere on this path and I can increase the stroke. Let's say I click here. If I increase this, you could see what it looks like, and I can decrease. I can even hold my Alt key to decrease one part. I'm holding my Alt key or the Option key on the Mac to change this. Right? Gonna go back again. Let me hold my Alt key again. I can reduce one part. I can hold Shift Alt and increase just one part. So I'm going to undo this. I can even come to the edge, increase this. You see, I'm varying the outline. Now I can also play around this. If I don't like the way this thing is looking here, I can click on my stroke, double click to get it to look like this. If I don't have my stroke here, just quickly go to your windows. You're gonna find your stroke somewhere here, and once you click on that, it's gonna come up. Now by default, the cap is set to box, but if I change it to rounded, it's gonna modify the way this place is looking and the way this place is looking. So I'm gonna click on rounded. Let me have the shape selected. Click on rounded. You can see it's round off this path. If I want to extend or project the cap, if I click on that, it's going to project the cap out. Undo that, you see what it does, projects out by these rounds. Let me go back to my tool. I can minimize this path. Hold here, minimize here a bit. You can see the kind of shape I have right now. So you can play around this until you achieve whatever you want. I can reduce this a bit. I can increase the center. So I have the liberty of adjusting this shape until I achieve whatever I want, and I can drag this from one point to the other. See that? Drag it to this point, and everybody has the same kind of equidistance here. I can drag this to this point. Stopped here because I already have some distortion here, right? So you can keep this thing here, can increase here. Alright, the same thing can happen to this one. You can click on anywhere, have it selected. I'm going to select all the objects, click on my width tool, going to increase here, going to increase here, going to increase here. You can even increase this part. Increase here. See that? So depending on what I want, I can change it to rounded. So once I'm happy with what I have, I can just stop. Okay, let me just go back again. I think I like what I have here. So let's do something like a real life issue where you can find this width tool very handy. Say I have this monster being drawn here by me. I'm going to play around some of the strokes along this path and see what I'm going to achieve. Get the width tool. I'm going to increase this from this point. But before I do that, if I zoom in a bit, you will see that here kind of have like sharp edge. I don't want that to happen. I'm going to zoom out, Ctrl 0, Ctrl Z to undo this. First, what I want to do is to decrease this. Maybe I can keep it in 0.01, 0.01. Hit enter. It's now very thin. I'll get my width to. I'm going to increase this again. Now, when I do that, if I zoom in again, you can see here is now very sharp, very sharp. So once I have that, if I'm happy with that, I can make here thinner. Let me make here thinner. Press this, make here thinner, make here thinner. Yep. Select this one, increase this a bit. Go here, increase here a bit. Go to the mouth, increase here a bit. Yep. So you can see what I'm able to achieve. I can select these two and fill the color with white. Select these two and fill the color with black. This is one thing you can achieve with the width tool, and you can find this handy when you are doing illustrations like real life illustration, human, cartoons, and the rest. Yeah, I hope this is useful to you. Alright, catch you later in the next video. Welcome back, guys. So today we are going to be looking at the pencil tool. The pencil tool is used to create freehand sketch. Alright, so there will be points in your illustration that you will want to have a tool that you could use to draw anything you want. Of course, the pen tool and the curvature tool can possibly do what I'm about to do, but you will find pencil tool handy when it comes to doing exactly what I want to do right now. First thing you want to do is to make sure that your pencil tool is very smooth. So once I double click on that, it's going to give me the options of the fidelity. I already have mine on smooth region. If you have it on the accurate region, you will kind of have like little sort of bumps when you draw your freehand sketch. Let's see what that looks like. I'm going to have it as accurate. Click OK. I'm going to draw something. I have my outline color as white. Let me increase the weight. You go to stroke. If you don't have your stroke here, quickly go to window, scroll down, you're going to find your stroke here. So I'm going to increase the stroke to make it 4. Yeah, you can see how the bumps I'm seeing here. I'm seeing some sort of bumps here. It's not looking very smooth, but see what happened when I change this thing to smooth. I'm going to drag it all the way to smooth. I'm going to make similar shape. Let me try to draw the same thing. Alright, you can see the difference. You can see how smooth here is looking, and here we kind of have some sort of bumps here, but it's automatically smoothing the parts for me. So I'm gonna exit out, Ctrl 0. Let me delete all this. Now you could play around. Let's say you have a picture and you want to have some sort of line around the picture to make it look unique. You can use a pencil tool to draw some freehand sketch on that. I'm gonna make some. I'm gonna stop here. You can see how unique this picture is looking. Let me drag this to this region. Now there are several things you could actually do to this shape to make it look good. Here is you can see that automatically here is rounded, not because yours might not be looking like this. It's actually because my selected cap here is rounded. By default, it's always at the butt cap. Once you click on the butt cap, you can see how sharp here is. I don't want this to happen. If I prefer to have a round cap, I can choose this. If you love the butt cap, feel free to use it. Projecting caps is the same thing as the butt cap, but this time around, instead of ending where the line stopped, it's going to project a little bit more away from the line. So once I click on that, you can see what happened. It added this small portion here again because it's projecting. I would prefer to have it round. Let me go out. Then there are some other things that you could do. You could see in this region here, we kind of have here rounded as well. The reason why I have this rounded is because I have my corners to be round. Okay, so if I If I change it to mitre, you could see how sharp it's looking, like the same thing as bot cap, right? But it's happening at the corner side. And I also have another one called bevel. Bevel is kind of like chamfer. If I click on that, it behaves the same way as this. And you could see the limit here. You could decide to increase this. It's automatically at 10. I like it there. If you want to play around this, feel free to play around it. All right. So there are some other things again that you may want to do to this line that you just drew with your pencil. You could decide to have it become a dashed line. Once I select my dashed line, you would see I have several dashes here right now. You see how this is looking. Very unique stuff. It adds some sort of texture to your image. All right, I can play around with the dash. I can decide to reduce it to, let's say, 5. I can also decide to minimize the gap. Let's say I have it as 20. And if my gap is much like this, I can decide to reduce the gap. Let's say I make it 5. You see it's a bit closer. If it's close enough, I can make it, maybe make it 9. Say I can make it even 10. So depending on whatever you want, just feel free to play around it. You could decide to even add some kind of fiery texture here. You could get your pencil tool and make that happen to this car. See that? So it's looking unique. Whatever you just want to do, just feel free to use a pencil tool to do that. Now I'm going to play around these guys that are dancing here. There are some things I'm going to add here using my pencil tool. I can decide to kind of have some sort of line go around the lady and connected to the man too. You would have seen people do these things to some of their images, and you'll be wondering, how did they do this? Of course, you know everything I'm doing right now, you can also achieve it using your, you guess it right, your pen tool, your line tool. But you know, some tools are good to be used for some kind of things. So you know, if you want to use some other tool to do these same things, you may achieve the same result, but it might take you a longer time. So that's why I'm teaching you all this. So that's why I'm unveiling how to use the pencil tool, so that you could find this thing handy for whatever thing that you are doing. Whoa, you can see how this is looking right now. So let's say you want to play around something, you are designing something for your client that dances, and you just want to introduce some kind of unique lines to it. You can use your pencil to do that. Let me reduce this to maybe 12. Yeah, I can even reduce it more. Let me make it 8. Yep. So once I'm happy with that, I can stop. Of course, I can also play around this line if I don't want this thing to be a uniform line. Like you can see, whenever I select my line, you can see there are some other things added here. So I can decide to increase the stroke weight, which I can also do here. All right. I can also decide to play with the arrowhead of this. If I click on this, I can find some other stuff here. You can see I don't have any arrowhead here. I have it as no. If I select arrowhead, you can see it added an arrow here. If I want to add to the end, I can also pick one arrow, and you can see from it added the arrow from the start point to the finish point. I don't want that. I'm going to make it none. And of course, you can see here, you can also scale it down, you can scale it up, you can align it, you can do whatever. You can toggle around this and see what you're going to get. Let me just quickly show you some other things I want you to know about playing around with the lines that you have. Perhaps you don't want to have lines on this, you want to have some other things, brushes or something. You could actually go to this particular brush dimensions here and pick whatever thing you want. You could see by default I'm on basic, that's what you are seeing here. If I pick points, let's say this rounded point, it changes this, right? You can see how this thing is looking. If I pick a bigger one, let's say 15, you can see how different this thing is looking. If I pick this one over, you can see how different. So you could pick a lot. You can say, wow, this is looking unique. Wow. So you can say you can play around this as much as you want. Let me select this and go back and continue what I'm doing. Now you could select some other things like this brush here, like this shaku feather. If I click on that, it will give this a different look. You can see that a different look. I can also click on the library here, the brush library, and pick any one I want. Let me just quickly go to vector pack, go to brush vector. If I click on that, you could see some other ones that you can play around with. Let me drag this down, pick the whoa, you see what this one is doing. So once you are comfortable with what you have, you can decide to choose. You're at liberty, to choose whatever you want. I can go back to my library, go back to work, maybe go to Wacom, see another thing, maybe pick this to see how it's going to appear, pick this. So you have a lot that you can play around with, right? You can also still go back there and go to your library, play around some other things that you have here to see what it's gonna give you. Oh, I have some other powerful tools here. If I click on this, it's gonna give me something different. You see that it's giving me something different. Yeah, but I think I prefer what this gave me. So that's basically how to use this tool. You can play around with your stroke, play around with the brushes that you want to use, until you get absolutely whatever you wish to have. Remember, whatever I did here with the pencil tool can also be achieved with what, you guessed it right, with the pen tool. You can see I still have those kind of dotted line happening here. I can decide to use my curvature tool to do the same thing. You can see it's happening too. Let me escape. I can decide to use my line tool to do the same thing. You see it still happen. So whichever one comes in handy, just feel free to use whatever you want. Feel free, you are at liberty to use whatever you want. Okay, all right, see you in the next video. Welcome once again. So today we are going to be looking at a very special tool. Let's say you have some attribute of an object that you want to copy or transfer to another object. The exact tool to do that with is the eyedropper tool. The eyedropper tool is the tool that you use to carry a feature of another object into another object. For example, if I want to transfer the color of this shape to this particular shape here, I will just select the one I want to transfer the attribute to and then get the eyedropper tool that's located here. Once I click on that, if I click anywhere on this reference object, this one is going to adopt that attribute. So once I click on this, it changes to that color. If I click on this, remember this one is kind of a combination of a gradient and a stroke. Once I click on that, it adopts that appearance. Once I click on this one, it adopts this appearance. So that is what the eyedropper tool does. The same thing can also happen here. Once I get the eyedropper tool, I can change to whatever attribute that I want. All right, now it mustn't be the same shape, right? Of course, if I click on this, the only attribute this shape is going to collect from this is the color. You can see that. You can see that that's the only thing it can collect from it. It's not as if the shape is going to change entirely. What I mean by the attributes is the features, the colors, the stroke patterns. That is what the other object is going to adumbrate. So that is what's going on here. So I'm going to show you another great thing that you can use the eyedropper to do. Let's assume you have a picture. By the way, that's me. If you have a picture and you feel that there are some colors in this particular picture that you want to use, once you click on the object you want to transfer the attribute to and you get your eyedropper to, once you click on anywhere around this guy, the color is going to be transferred to this shape. So once I click on the yellow color, it changes to this. Click on this, it changes to that. Click on the skin, it changes to this. Click on the glasses, it changes to that. Anywhere I click around, even the TV here, board, the blue here, so it keep adopting those color. So you can find this thing handy when you quickly want to preference a color of one object to another, stroke pattern and the rest. So the eyedropper tool comes in handy and also saves you time. I hope you've been able to learn something today. All right, see you in the next video. Welcome back, guys. So today we are going to be looking at gradient tool. this tool is used to apply 2 or more colors to your shape. So once I have the shape highlighted, I can quickly go to my swatches. If I'm seeing a color that has one or more colors, that basically calls for gradient. But then there are many ways to do the same thing in Adobe Illustrator. First of all, you could see that I have a tab here called the gradient. If I don't have this here, I'll quickly go to my windows, scroll down to gradient, and it's going to fly out for me once I select it. So I will select the object. I'm going to click on this gradient that I have here. You could see this. Once I click on this, it's going to apply 2 or more colors to this. All right, by default, this gradient that I have here has just 2 colors, and using the gradient tool, I can decide how I want the orientation of this color to be. I can decide to, by default it's already in the horizontal direction. I can decide to place it vertically, whichever way I want to. I can decide to place it diagonally. You have that liberty, right? You can actually drag a color from your swatches to the gradient slider. If you don't have your swatches here, just quickly go to Windows, scroll down to swatches. Once you click on that, you're going to have your swatches populated. So I can pick a particular color and drag it to this location, and it becomes part of the gradient. I can shift the location of any of the colors on my object slider, and I can play around with this slider here to decide where I want or how I want it to be positioned on my shape. So I'm going to pick this particular one. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to apply this, and I'm going to replace this color that I already have here by simply clicking and dragging the color on top of the already existing color. Once I do that, it will change the color. If I don't want to do it this way, I can quickly double click on this, and I have this. I can change the position of these colors right here using my color palettes. I can change it. I can also bring my cursor down on this color palette and then pick any color I want. If I don't like this, I can still click on my swatches here and then pick any color of my choice. I'm going to pick the dark red, and you can see I have the eyedropper tool here. That's like a color picker. Let me click on this background. You can see it changed this to this. Let me click on this one here. It changed this to this. Let me click on the background. It changes to that color. So once I click on this, I'm going to give it another color. Let me try to give it like let me make it lighter gray. All right, so that looks good to me. Now the next thing I want to show you is there are many gradients already existing in your swatches. So once I go to the swatch libraries and I scroll up to the gradient, I will see that I have a lot of already existing gradient. Okay, so that means that apart from the one you can mix with your hands, there are already existing gradients in your software that you can leverage on. So once you click your direction tool, you could see that we have many hundreds of already existing gradients. So I'm gonna stay here. I'll select my shape and then I'll give it any color I like. Select this, let me give it a lighter one. Select this one, let me give it a darker one. Let me give this one a more lighter look. This looks good to me, so I'm gonna select this one. Let me pick something else. Let me give it this color. Yep. Pick this one. Yeah, let me give it this one. I think this is. Yeah, this looks good to me. So whatever you want to do, all right guys, so you have the liberty to do that. I'm gonna close this now. So you already know how to pop up your gradients, you know how to get it. So quickly move to your swatches, scroll up to gradients, and then click at any point, choose anyone, and then navigate to look for whatever that you feel that is right for the job you are working on. Now the next thing I want to show you is the gradient types. There are 3 types of gradient. We have the linear, radial, and freeform. The linear basically means using line to position, to orient how the colors is going to be here. So let's assume I have this. I'm going to click on already existing gradient that I have here. Once I click on this and I select my tool, you're going to see like a straight line. So that's what the linear is, using a straight line to position your colors or orient your colors. Radial basically means using circle to orient your color. So if I select this and I switch from linear to radial, it's gonna change. You can see this changed right? So if I click on my 2 again, this thing is no longer becoming a line. You see that from here to here, from the middle of the circle to the circumference of the circle, we have a radius here. So I can click and drag at any point and then orient the colors how I want it to be oriented. So you are at liberty to do that. Final one is the freeform. The freeform is kind of using points to add your color. So I'm going to select this and I'm going to switch from radial to freeform. Once I click on freeform, you can see I have by default 4 colors. I can add as many point colors that I want. I can decide to click on anywhere around this, and once I click at any of the points, I will select the kind of color I want to apply there. I can choose to apply this brown color here, pick this, apply the lighter one, pick this, can add red, pick this, add black, pick this, add orange, add blue, pick this, let me add yellow. All right, so you are at liberty to do whatever you want to do, using the freeform. All right, so this is basically how to use this. One more thing I also want to show you is that when I have a gradient anywhere on my object, let me assume I have something like this, I can decide to play around the opacity of this object, right? Remember, I have opacity here and I have location. Location means the position of any of these. You can see this one is at position 0% and this is at position 100%. I can switch the position of these two objects by dragging them to a different location. You can see that changed from point that this thing was, and I can add some other colors here. Once I click anywhere, it will keep adding colors for me, and I can decide to remove colors by dragging out, click, drag out, click, drag out, click, drag out. All right, so these things also come in handy whenever you choose to make some modification or slight modification to your colors. Now, one last thing, we don't only apply gradient to the fill part of the shape, you can also apply to the stroke, right, to the surrounding of that object. So if I select this object and I click on the stroke, I can apply gradient to the stroke. So I'm going to pick the already existing gradient on my swatches, right? So I'm going to pick this, pick the red one. You can see it's obvious here, and of course I can add both fill and stroke, right? I am at liberty to do that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to switch to radial, right? Let me add this, make it radial. Go to stroke, add this. I'm going to make it radial. Let me get more obvious ones. Like this, make it radial. That's good. So I'm going to select this one. I'm going to pick this color. That's radial already. Of course, freeform cannot operate on the stroke, okay, but it can play a major role on the fill. Okay, so we can see it's already activated. So if I move from fill to stroke, see it's not being highlighted, but if I switch to the fill, it becomes visible. All right, and I can click at any point and add any color that I want. I'm at liberty to do that. Okay, that looks good. I hope you've been able to learn something today. All right, see you in the next video. Welcome back, guys. So today we are going to be looking at the pen brush tool and the blob brush tool. These two tools are still the same thing, they do similar stuff, but just they have some little change in the kind of feature that they operate in. All right, so once I click on my pen brush tool, which the shortcut is B, if I click on that and let me change the stroke to, let me leave it at 4, and then I'm going to try to draw this. Okay, you see how it looks like? Yeah, very cool. Now I can decide to change some of the features of this brush. Though if I double click on this, I will see the fidelity. It's at the center. That means this particular shape, you could see it's not 100% smooth. So I'm going to increase this to the smooth region. I'm going to click OK, and I will try to draw the same thing again. you can see the software kind of smoothens the path for me. All right. So if I double click and leave this thing at the accurate region, you would say, I will still be able to draw the same thing, but it may not be 100% smooth. You can see it's not 100% smooth. So based on whatever you are doing, you might want to keep this, at the center or at the smooth region. I like keeping mine at the smooth region to make sure that I have like that, that soft flow along the path that I'm trying to create. Right? You can see this is what smooth helps you to achieve. If you want to add color to this, once you click on this, select the outline and then apply any color you want to on it. All right, let's move to the blob. Now the blob still does the same thing. Just once you right click on the paintbrush tool, you're gonna see the blob brush tool here. That's Shift B. You see that's the shortcut. Once I click on that, I will try to draw the same thing here. See, I have this. If I double click on that, I can also change the fidelity. You could see that there is a difference in the kind of feature that that we have on the paintbrush and the blob brush. Here we can actually modify the size of the brush path. We can increase it here. We can also change, play around with the angles, play around with the roundness. So let me just try to move this thing to this soft region. Click OK. Try to draw the same thing. Okay, you can see what happened. Very sharp drawing. I'm gonna click this again and increase the sizes. Press OK. It's still the same thing as increasing the stroke, but this time around, instead of increasing the stroke outside the feature of the object, you can do that within the feature of that particular tool. So you can see, wow, this is so big. Yeah, but it still gave me like a smooth path. If you still want to see what the accurate region does, once you bring this thing down to accurate, let me try to reduce the size a bit. Click OK. You could see it's gonna give me some kind of rough edges, right? I can also still keep this here and play around with the roundness. If I decrease this, you can see the roundness is changing, right? I'm making it to become more elliptical. Yeah, it's forming like an ellipsis. I'm deforming the roundness of the circle, right? Once I click OK and try to draw the same thing, you could see what it looks like. Right now I have some kind of thing. So you could see, if you want to build your own fonts or you want to do your own thing, you can actually use this blob brush to do your own thing, and you may come up with something that makes sense to you. All right, I hope this was able to help you to learn one or two things and add to your skill set. All right, I will see you in the next video. Welcome back, guys. So today we are going to be looking at another amazing tool called Intertwine. Adobe just launched 2023 version, and Intertwine is one of the features that they included in the new version of Adobe Illustrator. So once you select the object and you want to connect your shapes together, Intertwine comes in handy. Instead of using the shape builder tool or Pathfinder to do this, you can actually use this new tool called Intertwine to achieve your linking. So once you highlight the object that you want to link together, quickly go to object, scroll down to Intertwine and click make. Once you click on make, you will see your cursor will change to kind of form some kind of a lasso shape kind of tool. So once I circle around this region, the blue color is going to go beneath the red color. So yeah, boom, that's what happened here. I'm going to do that again here. It's going to go down and the green one is going to come up. Do the same thing here and do the same thing here, right? I'm still gonna do the same thing here. Gonna do the same thing here. Gonna do the same thing here. Your circle must not be perfect. Once you're able to round off everything around the path that you want to apply that to, you're gonna intertwine it. All right, if you make a mistake, just quickly hit on your Ctrl Z or undo, and then you're gonna start afresh again. Let's do one more example. Highlight the whole shape, go to object, scroll down to intertwine, make, then circle around the region that you want to intertwine. Let me try to round off everything. You can see I made a mistake here. If I don't like this, going to do Ctrl Z to undo that, click elsewhere. Let me try to highlight again, go back to object, intertwine. It's still twined. Let me just release it, select again, go back to object, intertwine, make. Let me try to round it off better now. Okay, let me try to round this off better. Okay, so once you are happy with what you have, you can just click elsewhere. Now I have an example where intertwine might have played a major role, even though at the time this particular logo was created, intertwine was not there. The Olympic logo, you could see that these shapes are intertwined. Now using this feature, you could quickly create or recreate this logo at ease, right? So I'm going to highlight these objects, go to my object, scroll down to intertwine and make. So you could see here the yellow was on top, but here the yellow was beneath the blue one. So I'm going to twine here, boom, and it happened. The yellow was on top of the black here, so I'm going to twine this, boom, and it happened. Here it was below, green was above here, twine here, beneath it's above here. Let me twine this region. Yeah, so with this you could see how speedily we are able to achieve the Olympic logo. So you could find this intertwine handy maybe in the future when you are playing around an object that you want to connect together. I hope you've been able to learn something today that you're going to add to your skill. Alright, see you in the next video. Hello, welcome back guys. So today we are going to be looking at the blend tool. So this tool is basically used to transition from one shape or color to another. It's a gradual change. The blend tool is positioned here. So once I click on that, let me select my first object and I will click on my blend tool. Then I will select the object again, then I will transition smoothly to this one. You can see how that color eventually faded from the black region to the lighter gray region. And I can still click on another color and you will see how this is going to transition from the lighter gray region to the orange region. And I can continue doing the same thing, doing the same thing, doing the same thing, do the same thing, and then do the same thing. I can decide to continue. So but one thing I want you to catch is you can see how this shape we are gradually transitioning from one point to another, from one point to another. I'll do the same thing to this one. Let me get the blend tool again. Let me transition from this one to 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 this one. Alright, you can see that. So this is how you gradually transition from one color to another. Now, but this is not all there is to blend to. There are more options to this. So this one is the one I normally use when I want to get the colors between two colors and have it accessible to me. So if I pick these two colors and I move quickly to the object, scroll down to blend, then I will select the options first. On the options you could see I have the smooth, specified steps and specified distance. So let me start with the smooth colors. If I press, I'm going to keep the orientation at this point. I'm going to click OK, then I will go back to the object, scroll down to blend, and I'm going to say make. Quickly go to my object and then expand. I can also expand the one we did before. I'm going to expand and click OK. Once I expand, you could see that I have several circles inside this particular blended shapes. So once I right click, I can ungroup, and if I ungroup, you could see that I have access to numerous colors, right? I have access to many colors between those two guys, right? The same thing can also happen here. I can decide to quickly go to object, scroll down to blend. Okay, but for the purpose of what I'm teaching you now, let me use this particular blend option to maintain what I'm teaching you. So I'm going to click these two together, quickly move to object, scroll down to blend, more options. I'm going to switch to this one, to the align to path. The first one is align to page, this one is align to path. So I'm going to click OK, object, and then make. Yeah, you can see just basically the same thing, just different orientation anyway. So I'm gonna go to my object, expand, click OK, right click on group, and you can see I have access to many colors. So let's explore the other option that we have in the blend tool. Quickly go to object, scroll down to blend. This time around I'm gonna use the specified steps. I'm gonna keep it at say I have like 4 steps. Click OK, object, blend, make. You can see I have 4 steps. You can see 1 2 3 4. That was the step that I added. So in case you don't want to have numerous colors like the smooth steps we saw before, you can specify the number of colors that you want to see transition from one point to the other. Quickly go to your object, scroll down to expand, OK, and right click, and you will have access to this color. Now you can see that if I select this one and I get my eyedropper tool, I can transition from one color to the other. Yeah, I'm gonna undo that. So let's see what else we have here. I'm still gonna do you can see I can still, you know, switch the orientation to, so that's left for you. You can decide to explore that, but let's see what this one is gonna give us. So still the same thing anyway. There is no much more difference. Object, expand, OK, right click on group. Okay, so let's see what the last option there is. And I'm going to select specified distance. So this one is you specifying the distance between two shapes, okay, when they are morphing together or when they are transitioning, the distance between two different circles. So I'm going to keep this at 4. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to make now. So quickly go back to object, expand, OK. Still the same thing like the one we saw earlier, but of course I can decide to change the distance. Okay, so let me try to change the distance of this particular one. More options. I'm gonna give this like, let me give it 20. Click OK. Object, scroll down to blend, make. You can see I have a different kind of blending between these two, and if I increase the number of distance, it will still give me different kind of orientation. All right, so another thing I want to show you is that using the blend tool, you can actually morph two different shapes as well, not just the same shape. We can morph two different sizes of shapes together, and you're going to see how it will gradually transition from one to another. So I'm going to select this one, the smaller one, click on the blend, and then morph it with the next one. You can see that transition. Now the reason why I have this way is, if you remember with our previous slide, we were able to set our points to 20. So I'm going to undo that. If I go to blend options, if I change it to smooth, click OK and do the same thing again. Oh, sorry, I blended the page. Yeah, of course you can still decide if you want to expand and then have access to the different colors in between the two sized shape. Okay, so let me now show you the one of different shapes that you can also morph together. So I'm going to select the star, click on there, blend, select the star, select the circle. You can see how it transitions from the star position to the circle position, and I can transition from the circle position to the block position. Right, so you're at liberty to do whatever you want. I hope you've been able to learn something today. So you can see how we're able to transition from one shape to the other, transition from one color to the other, and have access to numerous colors in between them. That's basically what the blend tool helps you to actualize. All right, I hope you've been able to learn something again. See you in the next video. Welcome back, guys. So today we are going to be looking at the eraser tool. Alright, so with the eraser tool, just like the name sounds, use it to erase some things, but technically just erasing things may not give you the exact shape you want. So we can actually distort shapes using the eraser tool. So what you want to do, for instance, like I have this tennis ball, you could see that I have kind of some gaps here which I made using the eraser tool. Now I'm going to teach you how to achieve something like this. So you have to select the object and quickly go where we have the eraser tool here. So once you click on that, you can increase the size of your eraser tool by clicking on the square bracket. Right, with the square bracket you either increase or decrease. Increase or decrease. So if I increase it to this side, you can see when I click anywhere, see this shape disappears, right? That's what eraser tool should do to clean stuff. But I'm going to undo this, Ctrl Z, and I'm going to reduce the size using the square bracket. So I have that. So if I want to make this line, I will just click and then drag. See, I've made the shape. Click and then drag. You could see right now that this object kind of looks like a tennis ball, right? It looks like a very nice tennis ball. And I can decide to give it different colors than the rest, and that will achieve something that I want. All right, so you can see that. Of course, here it looks like a gradient. I'm gonna use my eyedropper tool and then pick this color. You can see the gradient just happened here, and I'm gonna get my gradient and then maybe slide all through here. Yep, this is looking okay. So I'm gonna select this particular one again and do the same thing. Go to eraser tool and distort this part, right? Until you just get what you want. Okay, instead of just erasing an object, you can leverage on this tool to change your shape. Now let's try this egg. Let's say this looks like raw egg, and I want to distort the shape of this egg. I can still use my eraser tool to do this. There are still some other tools here that you can use to achieve this same thing, but I find eraser tool comfortable when it comes to distorting shapes like this. So I'm going to get the eraser tool and then I'm going to increase the size using this square bracket. Now see that? See what's going on? You see that? So I'm going to undo this. Yeah, so that is what you can achieve with this. Let me just try to randomly make some kind of shapes here. Now there are some other functionalities that you may want to change in this eraser tool. When you go to your eraser tool here and you double click on this, you're going to see some options. We have the angles, roundness and size. All right, so if I reduce the roundness, you could see that it's formed like an ellipse shape, but if I make it 100% roundness, it makes a circle. So if I have it this way, let me just quickly undo this a bit so that we can get what we're talking about. Double click on this, let me change the roundness to this, hit OK. So you can see if I'm distorting my shape, you can see what it's giving it. So I'm at liberty to change this. You can do whatever you want to do. Let me undo this again. Double click on that, change the size. Of course, we've kind of seen that we can use the square bracket to increase or decrease the size before. So let me just decrease it with the square bracket and increase it with the square bracket. So you can actually do that there. Let me double click on this. Let's check the angle. Now this is angle 0 degrees. So if I increase it to, say, let me just make it 90 degrees. Yeah, and hit OK. So you can see it turned up. Let me reduce it using the square bracket. Yeah, so you are at liberty to do whatever you want to do to the shape, so far you actualize what you have in mind. Hopefully this particular skill set, you might find it handy when you are working with shapes tomorrow. Maybe you want to distort some things. All right, see you in the next video. Now let's talk about the knife tool. So whenever you want to cut your object or divide a shape, the best tool to use is the knife tool. Of course, I've taught you how to use the Pathfinder tool, and I've also taught you how to use the eraser tool to distort shape. But this time around, instead of you using the Pathfinder tool, you can use your freehand knife tool to create pathways on your object. All right, so whenever you want to cut an object or create paths on an object, the go-to tool is the knife tool. And it helps you because you can create any path that you want. You can cut your object whichever direction you want to cut it from. Alright, so I'm going to get the knife tool here. It just beneath the eraser tool here. So once I select that, I can draw a freehand line across this object, and it's going to create that for me. First of all, let me select the object, click on the knife tool and draw a line. See that? It has created this path for me. I've cut the shape this point, So another thing happened. Let me also cut it this way. Another thing happens, right? And I have the liberty of choosing whatever color I want for these parts, right? So that's basically what the knife tool does to create pathways, freehand pathways in a shape. Let's do some other examples. So I'm going to select this object, go to knife tool, draw this line, draw this line, draw this line, draw this line. Alright, so once I make that happen, I can choose whatever color I want. Yeah, let me do the same thing here. Let me try to play around this. Let me just do what I'm used to. Alright, so you can see I'm at liberty of creating any shape I want. So these are some of the things that the Pathfinder tool may not be able to do. The knife tool just helps you to create freehand pathway on your object, so that you wouldn't be limited. Let me give it blue. Let me make this. Let me give it yellow. All right. Remember, you can remove this. Yes, you can remove this. Yeah, alright, let me undo this. So there are many things you can really achieve using this tool. You can make your work very, very unique compared to what other people are creating out there. Let me still do this again. Get the knife tool. Try to do something unique. Yeah, so you can see how I'm creating different paths using my knife tool to create this thing. So you can actually leverage on this tool to create multiple paths in a shape. I hope you've been able to learn something. Alright, see you in the next video. Hello guys, welcome back again. So today we are going to be looking at the scissors tool. Previously we've looked at the eraser tool, we've looked at the knife tool. Right now we're going to be talking about scissors. Alright, still the same cutting happens here, but these two have their own uniqueness. Let me kind of refresh your memory on some differences that the eraser tool and the knife tool has. So if I have this selected and I get my eraser tool, let me decrease the size by using the square bracket. If I draw a line from this point to this point, you could see that it kind of removes this path, and I have this remaining portion up and then this larger portion down. But if I use the knife tool, I will only cut a part but not erase the entirety of that part. Alright, so if I cut a line like this, you could see I've made a division between this part and this part, but the eraser tool kind of removes some certain part to reserve the differences, but knife doesn't do that. And again, in this tool, you could see that if I have my outline stroke, it still kind of captures everything. My outline stroke for the line still also captures everything. But in the scissors tool, I have to select 2 points, but then I will have to trade some portion of the stroke. Let's see how this happens. So I will right click on this and I'll get my scissors tool. Let me pick this point and then pick this other point. Now let's check if I still have my outline all around. When I click on the outline, you can see my outline is only at the border, but not where the division actually happened, right? So in case you are creating something and you want your stroke to be affected, direction of the path, you can actually use your scissors tool to achieve that. Let's do this again. Let me try the scissors tool here. You can see it just continues cutting the object. Continue cutting. If I click another place, it continues cutting. Click another place, it continues cutting. But remember, the stroke may never be found in the inner region. It will only be on the outside. Let me use this color. Use this color. Let me use this color. Oh, why not black? Yeah. So you can see, so these are just the major differences amongst the eraser tool, knife tool, and the scissors tool. So depending on whatever you want to create, depending on the kind of path that you want to chart, you can now decide on the tool to actually use. Let's say do some more example on the scissors tool. Like I told you, you can just subdivide this into two different work. Let me get the scissors tool here. Let me click at this point and then click on this point. Now I've separated these two work. If I do that, let me also do it for the one on top. Get this point and get this point. So these two are now separated. See that? It's now separated. Now let me do it for this. You can see now I have the stroke or around this shape, but let's see what happens. I'm gonna click at this point and then click on this point. I'm gonna click at this point and also click at this point. Select everything, holding my shift key. You can see the stroke didn't follow through here. Alright, see you in the next video. Okay, welcome back guys. So today we are going to be looking at the mesh tool. This is a tool used to add colors using columns and row. That's like using a grid to apply colors to your shape. And you can see, using the example we have here, you can see I have 2 columns, 2 rows I mean to say, and 3 columns. Alright, so I'm going to select this object. I'm going to use the mesh tool here. I'm going to click on this, pick the first row, pick the second row, and then create like 3. Let me undo this. Create 3 columns. Alright, so what you basically want to do is to make sure that your fill color is selected, and then if I click at any point, I'm going to give it some color. Let me use the darker brown that I have here. I'm going to select this point, add the darker brown, select this point, dark one. So you're gonna, because you are meshing colors together, you are going to be adding colors at each point so that it will reflect on some of that point that is connected to it. Right, so let me complete this. Let me zoom in a bit so that we can see what we are doing. I can also use my direct selection tool to be adding the colors. Alright, so I'm gonna go to this one. Let me pick the lighter ones. Pick the lighter ones. Pick the lighter one. Okay. This. Let me say pick the lighter one. To pick the lighter one. The lighter one. Here I'm gonna pick this darker one. So whenever you achieve what you really want, then you can stop. Okay. So let me zoom out. So you can see how this is looking like a real cup. Instead of just adding colors, when I create, let me just create another shape. Instead of just adding colors, just one color per time, or maybe using gradient like we've learned in several videos, we can just basically use mesh to connect colors together. Let's try something again using this shape I just created. Let me get the mesh tool. Let me make like one column and 1 row. I think that's okay. Well, let me just make more. Let me make 3 columns, right? So I'm gonna pick this point. Let me add this darker black color here. Pick this point. Point. Pick this point. Let me put the lighter ones. So you can see what I was able to achieve. It still looked like gradient, but now I have the liberty of adding multiple colors into my shape to kind of give it some form of texture to it. So you can see that this looks like a real cup, and this is no longer looking like a normal flat rectangle or square shape. So let's do that one more time with this. I'm gonna select this, add 2 columns. Let me get the mesh tool, 2 rows, 3 columns. You can add more than 3 columns anyway if you want to. So I'm gonna pick my direct selection tool here. Of course, you can still use a mesh tool to be clicking and adding colors if you wish to. Let me put pure black here, black, black, black. You can see that this point looks so dark. Even here we have like multiple grid points. I can add more if I want to. See that? Make it black. Okay, black. Go to this region. Still add some black here. Me add this color here, just to make it look as if light is reflecting within that region. Still add one more. Let me close off with this lighter gray color. Alright, so you can see until you achieve whatever you want. If you feel that this point is not giving you what you want yet, you can still make some changes. Add some darker one here and some darker one here. Okay, once you get what you want, you can stop. I think here is so dark. Make it lighter. So yeah, so that's basically how to create some of this, and I hope this helps you to add to the skills that you've already acquired in the past. Alright, see you in the next video. Welcome back, guys. So today we are going to be looking at the rectangular grid tool. The rectangular grid tool is used to create tables, hash, and several kinds of tables that you want to create. This tool, you kind of find it handy in the future whenever you want to make such kinds of shape. The rectangular grid tool is located where we have our line segment tool. Once you right click, you're going to find it here. Once you select that and click anywhere on your artboard, it's going to bring these options for you, where you can select the width and height, the number of horizontal dividers, and the number of vertical dividers. Alright, if I'm comfortable with it, let me just make this in 5, make here 5, and click OK. So you can see I have this here. Now if I want to get this hash here without this border here, I will have to select the object, right click on it, and then ungroup. Once I ungroup this, I can remove this part. Now I have something similar to the example I have here. Now all of them are no longer grouped because I ungrouped. If you want to group them again, you select everything, right click again, and then group them. I'm going to do the same thing here, but I want you to also know that you can add a fill color, can add a stroke color to your grid. So I'm going to select on this, click on anywhere. Let me just make this 3, make here 3, and click OK. Yeah, so once I have this, I can give it the color blue, and I can give the stroke, I can select the stroke and give it the color of white. That's exactly how I made this example. So now we have the same thing like the example that we have here. But there are several other things that you might want to do with this rectangle too, where you're going to be using your Pathfinder to create some multiple kind of colors within your created rectangular grid. So once I click on my rectangular grid, select anywhere, let me say click OK. If I'm comfortable with this, let me just give it a color of just give it black. If I'm comfortable with this, what I would like to do is to click on Pathfinder and divide. Once I divide this, right click and ungroup, they become unique entities, and I can make any change that I want. I can give one different color and I can give another different color. So if I select this, let me use my eyedropper to give it this color. Select this, use my eyedropper to give it this color. Select this, use my eyedropper to give it this color. Select this, use my eyedropper to give it this color. So you are at liberty. So you can see this looks like a shares board. Maybe you are doing a project that has to do with creating a shares board or something. You can find the rectangular tool very handy. Instead of creating squares one after the other to make your chessboard, you can leverage on the rectangular grid tool to create that table, and then use your Pathfinder to give each grid or each particular sub square inside the grid a different color. Now there are some other things that we can also achieve using this. We can still use our shape builder to create some unique kind of table using the rectangular grid too. So once I click on this, I'm going to still make the same kind of table that I made earlier. I'll click OK, select everything. Let me just give it this color black, increase this a bit. Once I have this selected, I will just click on my shape builder tool, which I have here. Click on that, select all these colors together, and they are now merged. Right, I can select this, these two are now merged. I can select this, these two are now merged. Alright, so I can give them different colors. Let me right click on this and ungroup, then I can give them different colors. See that? Let me select all this and give it a different color. Select this, give it a different color. Let me select this and give it a different color. Of course, you can add text to this. So let me click on text. Maybe write something, just shape. I can get my eyedropper to give it exactly the same kind of font and style this has. I'm gonna click on that and drag and drop it here. Right, so you can see it's kind of much bigger. Let me reduce the size within my shift key, reduce the size a bit so that you can. So you can see these are some of the things that you can achieve with your rectangular grid tool, and you can leverage on some of that to create some other sophisticated shape that you want to achieve. All right, I hope you've been able to learn something today. Okay, see you in the next video. Welcome back, guys. So today we are going to be looking at the repeat tool. This is used to do something over and over and over again. Now there are three basic ways of doing repeat in Adobe Illustrator. We have the radial, we have the grid, and then we have the mirror. So I'm going to be showing you how you leverage on this tool to create multiple patterns of object that nobody has ever done. So let's assume you have a circle like this and you want to create this. You quickly go to your object, scroll down to repeat, and you could see we have the three kinds of repeat options, and we can click on more options to navigate through the way we want things to appear whenever we select any of the repeat choices. So we could see we have the radial, the grid, and the mirror. Now on the radial, you could see that we have by default 8 number of instances to happen quickly whenever we create this, and you could see that by default this is at 0. You can decide to have it at 90 degrees, but I'm going to just leave it empty and I'm going to cancel this. Now when I go back to my object on repeat, if I click on radial, it's going to repeat this object 8 times. Now you can see I have this, and you can see that it's radially arranged. Click and drag holding my shift alt key. I'm going to duplicate this There are many things I'm going to do to this object that is going to affect the way this shape is arranged. Now if I click on this and I drag, you could see that it distorted how this shape is arranged, and I'm getting a different shape altogether. And if I click on this, you could see I'm making some kind of changes to the number of shapes that I have here. I'm going to close this up. I'm going to increase this to have this back again. Close this out. Then I can increase the number of circles I have here by clicking and dragging down. I'm decreasing it. If I want to increase it, I will drag up, and if I keep dragging, I will keep having many instances. You can see right now I'm at 56 instances. Let me just try to make it 50 and then stop. You can see I have some other kind of shape. Now this shape, if you want to create it with a circle, it's going to take you longer time to have multiple circles that are going to give you this shape. But with the repeat tool, you can repeat a particular thing over and over and over and over again. Now I'm going to hold my shift key and I'm going to click this circle and then drag. You can see I've changed the orientation to this direction, and I can increase this. If I click and drag to another region, I'm kind of distorting the distance between the instances, and if I bring closer, I'm kind of reducing the distance between the instances. So you can play around this to see what you're going to achieve at the end. I'm going to do the same thing here. Click on this, go to my object, go to repeat, click on radius, and it creates 8 patterns for me. I'm going to select this, holding my shift alt key to duplicate this, and I'm going to increase this by clicking on this and then dragging up. I'm increasing the number of instances. Let me make it 50 as well. Now you can see I have some other kind of shape here. Now I have this star shape. Let me go back to my object, click on repeat and select radius. Now I have this A stuff here. So now I want to leverage on the expansion tool. Because you can see that these shapes, I cannot really separate them, right? With the expansion tool, I can play around this shape. I can distort how the shape is being arranged. I can distort each shape and I can give it a different look. So if I select on the object, I will quickly go back to my object and click on expand. When I click on expand, it converts this thing from being a radial of shape into becoming one single shape, right? One single object. So I'm going to click OK. Now you could see that there was a change. Now I don't have that button that increases the number of instances of this particular star. Now with this star, I can now see it as a single entity, and I can do something more to this. If I right click and ungroup, now I have them as distinct stars. I'm going to go back again. Let me know ungroup. I can decide to go to Pathfinder and unite the shape. If I unite that, it becomes one single shape and it gives me a different pattern altogether. So that's how the expansion tool works. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Let me try to duplicate this one. You already know how I got this. Duplicate this one and try to increase the number of instances. See that? Let me make it 50 again. Yep. Click on this, go back to object, scroll down to repeat, radius, and I have something like this. Remember, you can use expand if you want to. Let me duplicate this first. Let me increase the number of instances that I have here. Let me make it 50 as well. Click on this, go back to object, expand, click OK, and unite it together. I can even divide. If I click on divide, right click on group, see I have different shapes right now. So depending on whatever you want to achieve, you can find this tool very handy. Now let's look at some other repeat types we have. We have the grid. The grid is kind of creating multiple objects both throughout the row and throughout the columns. Select the object first, click on object, go to repeat, click on options, go to grid. Now you can see that we have horizontal spacing and the vertical spacing. So once I click OK, and if I go back to my object, go to repeat and I select grid, it's going to repeat the circle by grid. you will see I have 2 rows and I have like about 4 columns. If I click and drag here, it's going to increase the number of circles I have here on the horizontal side. If I click and drag here, it's going to increase the number of circles I have in the vertical side. Now with this, I can increase the instances of circles that I have, and I can decrease the instances of circles that I have. This is happening horizontally, and if I want to do that vertically, I'm going to select this one and I click on this. I have it this way. So depending on whatever you want to do, you can use this to create very unique patterns that you're going to use maybe on your flyers or even your illustrations. Finally, mirror. The mirror is basically used to change the location of an object. So if I select this object, click on object, scroll down to repeat, click on options, you could see that my mirror is in 90 degrees. So I'm going to mirror this image 90 degrees away from where it's originally positioned. So if I have it at 90, go back to my object, scroll down to repeat and mirror it, you could see it's happening at 90 degrees. Now this, I can use this to change the distance between the two objects. If I click on this and drag, you can see I'm changing the distance between the two objects. I'm at liberty to do that. Let me leave this here. I'm going to double click to exit. Now these two objects are mirrored together. You can see they have the same distance from each other. Let's assume you want to mirror this image. If I select this object and if I go back to my object, down to repeat, you can see that I have my mirror selected. If I mirror it, you can see what happened. So this is just basically what the mirror image helps you to do. It helps you to kind of reflect your object, maybe 90 degrees or whatever degree that you want to reflect it from. Let me undo this, select this again, go back to object, scroll down to repeat. Let me change the option from 90 degrees. Let me make it 45 degrees. Click OK. Object, go to repeat, mirror it. You can see it's now 45 degrees, and I can decide to bring this closer, decide to expand it. Let me bring it closer this way. I believe you've learned how to use these 3 types of repeat: the mirror, the grid, and the radial. Alright, see you in the next video. Welcome back, guys. So today we are going to be looking at the transform options. There are 5 basic transform options in Adobe Illustrator. We have the move, rotate, reflect, scale, and share. I'll be showing you quickly how all these things come into play when you are positioning your object or rotating your object, or displacing the location of your object from one point to the other. So the first, we are going to look at the move to. So I have this object. I'm going to move this object by 200 points and then locate it at a particular angle. Now there, of course, you can use your selection tool to move your object around, right? But if you want to specifically position your object at a particular location in Adobe Illustrator, the best transform option to use is the move to. Now if you select your object and you right click, you're going to find the transform options here. You can see we have the 5 of them here. You can also go to objects and you can find the transform option here again. So I'm going to select the move. First thing I want to do is to change the distance to 200 points. You see that? And then change the angle. Let me change it to, of course, minus 90 degrees is same thing as 270 degrees. Let me change it to 90 degrees. I'll click OK. You're gonna go here. Okay, let me do that again. Right click, go to transform, click on move, change this to 200, change this to 90. I'm gonna copy. If I click OK, I'm gonna move the object quickly from this position to this position. Once I make a copy, the reference object will still be here while a copy will be made at the new location. So I'm gonna click copy to see what happens. Select this again, transform, move, 200, let me try 270 degrees, make a copy again, see what happens. Click on this, transform, move, select 180, make a copy, See what happens again. Let me do one more. You can take out time to practice the rest. 0 degrees. 0 degrees is something as 360 degrees. 360 degrees. Make a copy. Yeah. So these are basically how to use your move to shift an object from one location to the other. The next transform option we are going to look at is the rotate tool. So if I select these two objects, there are two ways of doing this. If I right click on this object, I quickly go to my transform, go to rotate, select the angle I want to rotate this to. Originally this is located at 0 degrees. Now if I change this to 90 degrees and let me make a copy, see what happened. 90 degrees. Let me undo this, right click again, transform, rotate. Let me try to make it 45 degrees, make a copy. It's going to transform that to 45 degrees. Here you could basically find the rotate button here. Once I select this object, you could see this particular center point that is located here. That means this object is going to rotate in accordance with this center point here. So if I click at anywhere and then rotate this object, you could see that reference point becomes the exact point of rotation. Let me undo this. If I click on this center point and locate it elsewhere, maybe here, if I rotate, here will now become the reference point of rotation. If I rotate this object, you see it goes round that reference point. Let me undo this. If I move it to this direction and rotate, it's going to reference this particular location as the point of rotation. See that? So once I achieve what I want, I can stop. The same thing happens here. If I select this object, click on my rotate button, here becomes the center of reference. I can rotate it from the center. If I don't like it this way, I can click at the middle point of reference and drag it to another location and then rotate. There becomes the new center of rotation. Now let's look at the reflect. Reflect is like it's like a mirror, right? Remember the last time we talked about repeating options we have in Adobe Illustrator, the one located on the object. When you click on your repeat, you find the mirror. Now I'm going to do reflect is just the similitude of a mirror. Now you can see I've created an object, but I still want to have this particular arm at this left side of this body, right? So if I select the two objects, if I right click on it, when I go to transform, I'm going to find reflect. If I select reflect, the vertical part is selected. That means if I'm going to flip this object, if I'm going to reflect this object, it's going to be reflected vertically. If I select horizontal, that means it's going to be reflected horizontally. Now let me maintain vertical location and then I'm going to make a copy. Once I make a copy, that basically means that the initial hand is still going to be there, the reference hand is going to be there, while the new hand will be copied. So if I click copy, I can hold my shift key and drag it to a new location. You can see I've already made a new copy of this. Now still on this, I can go to my rotate tool here. If I right click on that, I will find my reflect option there. Once I click on that, you can see a point comes here, point of reference comes here. So if I click and rotate, you can see I'm beginning to reflect this object to a new position. I'm transforming it, I'm reflecting it to a new position. So whatever you want to do, however you want it to be positioned, you are at liberty to do just that. Alright, I'm going to undo this. Let me have it this way. So this is basically how to use the reflex to do this. So if you want to have much more room, much more options to play around with, you basically have to select the go to object, use transform button here, select reflex and play around this and achieve whatever you want to achieve. The next we are going to talk about is scaling. This is just the increase or decrease in size of a particular shape or object. So if I select this object and I right click, go to transform, you could find scale here. If I click on that, there is a uniform scale and there is non-uniform scale. The uniform scale basically means that the horizontal scaling and the vertical are the same at all time, right? While the uniform scaling is that one is increasing while the other is decreasing. So if I increase this, you see that I'm using the wheel button of my mouse to increase the size. So you can see every part of this object is increasing equally, right? But if I select non-uniform, if I start scaling one part, the other side will remain dormant. So you can see what's going on here. Now let me undo this. Right click, transform, select scale. Let me try to scale it by 200 and click OK. You see this object has been increased by 200. Now there are still options here that I can still do that with. You can see where I have my scale tool here. Once I select the scale here, you can see this point becomes my center of reference. That means if I click and drag, the increase is going to be happening at this from this center of reference. So if I click and drag, you can see, because I'm not holding my shift key, you can see that the increase is just distorted. But if I hold my shift key, holding my shift alt key, it's increasing equally. But if you're not holding any of this key, it begins to scale non-uniformly. So the last one I want to share with you is the shear tool. The shear tool is basically used to distort. You can still find it the same place where we have our move, reflect, and the rest. So if I select this object, this particular object, if I right click on it, move to transform, click on shear, so you could see that the shear angle is 0 degrees here. That means if I begin to change this angle, you see what's going on here, right? So this is 45 degrees. If I make a copy of this, let me give it another color. Let me select the main object again, go back to transform, click on shear, and I'm going to make it 135 degrees. 135 degrees. See, something happened. I'm going to make a copy of this. I'm going to make this, give it the same color, give it orange color. There is still shear tool in your option here. When you right click at the button here, you will see your shear tool here. Once I click on that, you can see I have your reference option. Now basically, whenever you are working with transform option and you are using the two buttons here, it will always give you a center point of reference, right? So if I click and drag, this object is going to be transforming based on this center point. Let me undo this. Let me select this again, the main circle, try to distort this object. You can see it's being distorted from the center. Alright, I hope you've been able to add one or two things to the skills that you've acquired so far in Adobe Illustrator. Alright, see you in the next video.